The first sequence this video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576. Today is not a day to be happy. The experimental subjects attacked from both the east and west directions. The gap in the north seemed to be the only way out of the entire barrier. Ren Xiaosu ran out first, followed by Zhou Yingsu. But when it came to Li Ren and his group, it seemed that things were not going so smoothly. A large number of refugees crowded at the entrance of the cave, and Li Ren and his group were completely unable to move. Someone was squeezed at the entrance and cursed, asking others to make way first. Can't they pass in an orderly manner? He himself was still squeezing forward with all his might. At this time, nothing he said would work. Can politeness and order be more important than his own life? Because of such a trivial matter, only a few people behind Ren Xiaosu and Zhou Yingsu got out of the hole in the wall, and they were all stuck in the hole. There were still a large number of refugees waiting to get out of the barrier behind the hole, but the hole was blocked and no one could get out. Ren Xiaosu didn't have time to care about them. If these people died because of such a trivial matter, he felt that their deaths were not unfair at all. Fortunately, the people behind had a strong desire to survive and kicked the crowd of people who were blocking the way. The crowd rushed out like water. Ren Xiaosu looked back. He thought the cave entrance would be blocked again, but he found that these people suddenly became much more orderly. He looked again in confusion and saw Lao Li and Qin Sheng guarding the cave entrance and organizing the refugees to evacuate. The two of them also followed later and followed the crowd to the north, but they did not think about escaping by themselves, but stayed at the cave entrance to guard the rear. Then, the two even went to meet the chasing experimental subjects. Fortunately, there were not many chasing experimental subjects, and 2 people were enough to deal with them. There were probably 5 or 6,000 experimental subjects invading the barrier, but they were scattered in the huge barrier. A small group of experimental subjects met 2 knights, and they could only die. Ren Xiaosu shook his head. He had done what he should do. The rest was up to fate. Thinking of this, Ren Xiaosu began to flee into the wilderness. On the way, Li Ren fell because of the rugged road, and she cried out. Feng Zhi and the plainclothes soldiers stopped and carried Li Ren to continue to run. Ren Xiaosu thought that this group of people were not so conscienceless. They could help Li Ren at this time, which was worth Li Ren's acquaintance with him. However, running in the wilderness with a weight of 100 kilograms on their backs was not a waste, even for soldiers. Everyone's original intention was good, but they wanted to leave Li Ren behind every minute when they ran. It's like many people are very filial. At first, after their parents fell ill in bed, they could still take care of them and wipe their feces and urine, but after a long time, they would feel that the elderly were a burden in their hearts. Because the pain accumulated over time will defeat a person. After leaving the barrier, Feng Zhi counted the number of people who came out of the tour team. What made him sad was that only half of the staff who followed them to travel around the country were left, and no one knew whether the remaining half could still walk out of the barrier alive. After running for 2 hours, when they started walking on the mountain road, the plainclothed officers who took turns carrying Li Ren were exhausted, and their knees could not bear the heavy pressure. The mountain road was too difficult to walk. Ren Xiaosu took a short rest on a small hill, and the people behind him stopped with him. Ren Xiaosu climbed to the top of the hill and looked back at the number 74 barrier in the distance. From this position, he could even see the outline of the barrier, but he could not see clearly what was inside. Lao Li and Qin Sheng had caught up with him. Both of them were injured. Ren Xiaosu handed them a bottle of black medicine. It's very useful. Apply it on the wound and it will heal quickly. The 2 knights thanked him. Because of the battle with the experimental subjects, they had consumed a lot of physical strength. Ren Xiaosu asked, how many refugees escaped from behind? Quite a few, Lao Li panted, but the remaining ones who didn't escape are probably in danger. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu looked up suddenly as if he had sensed something, and he looked in the direction of the barrier. Seeing him do this, the others also looked towards the barrier. In just a moment, something seemed to fall into the fortress, and then a strange and huge light spot began to spread. The entire fortress was stirred up by this sudden blow. A huge smoke and dust. In the blink of an eye, the extremely mighty explosion began to spread from the inside to the outside, and the deep red flames rushed up, covering the entire fortress in a mushroom cloud. The overwhelming airwaves spread outward, and a circle of transparent waves instantly turned the entire fortress into dust. The scene of devastation was like a god suddenly sent down a divine punishment from the sky. When the airwaves spread, the places that were not affected by it were still the original earth-gray color of the building, while the circle affected by it was full of orange flames. The distant firelight illuminated the faces of the refugees who had already escaped far away on the hillside. Even though they were so far away, the airwave still blew up everyone's hair and clothes, and some people were even blown backwards by the airwave. This is Ren Xiaosu asked in a daze. Nuclear bomb, Lao Li said with difficulty, a human weapon that even gods are afraid of. All the refugees were stunned. Even though they knew that there were probably only experimental subjects left in the fortress and no living people, the scene of destroying everything still shocked and saddened them. That was the place where they had lived for decades. That was home. Ren Xiaosu suddenly remembered what Yang Xiaojin said, that this was a weapon that was difficult for humans to master. In the Qing's fortress, Qing Yi had returned to the barracks. He stood behind Qing Zhen and confirmed, the target was hit accurately, and all the experimental subjects should have been killed. The maximum flight altitude of the ballistic trajectory was 47 kilometers, the fastest flight speed was 7.5 kilometers, and the accuracy error was no more than 30 meters. This is the actual measurement data. But Qing Zhen in front of him always stood in the barracks with his hands behind his back, looking at the sky, and it was unknown what he was thinking. Qing Yi said with a smile on his face, "Brother, you are right. The experimental subjects are something that only children would be afraid of. Now that the experimental subjects have been caught, we have no more trouble." Qing Zhen slowly turned around and looked at Qing Yi and said, "Hey, today is not a day worth being happy about." Qing Yi slowly fell silent. He knew what Qing Zhen was thinking. Before, Qing had passed the news to Zhou early on, hoping that Zhou could stop the experimental subjects and save the residents of the barrier from suffering. But no one expected that Zhou would not be able to do anything with the experimental subjects for a while. Therefore, Qing's lurking personnel in barrier number 74 were also involved. After the other party determined that barrier number 74 was broken and irreversible, they immediately requested Qing to launch a missile. Therefore, this missile killed not only the experimental subjects, but also their people. Qing Yi understood that Qing Zhen would never want to go this far unless it was absolutely necessary. You know, even in the war with Yang and Li, Qing Zhen did not use such things. Qing Zhen patted Qing Yi on the shoulder and said, "Prepare for war. But we have such weapons, who dares to fight us?" Qing Yi was puzzled. Qing Zhen sighed and said, "It is precisely because we have such weapons." As he spoke, Qing Zhen was a little tired. But no one saw that after the shocking explosion, a gray figure retreated into the forest and disappeared. There are only 2 updates today. I will take a day off to sort out the following plot. Chapter 577 Wang Fuge. 74. The refugees saw their homes destroyed. Although they were sad, they were relieved that no experimental subjects would come out of the barrier to continue threatening them. However, Lao Li and Qin Sheng urged the refugees to continue on their way. Although they were far away from barrier number 74 and the equivalent of the nuclear bomb did not seem to be large, there would be radiation impacts. Therefore, they could not stop fleeing. They had to find reinforcements from Zhou's troops. The members of the Spark Company had disappeared. It was not known whether they died in the barrier or had found another way to escape. This was not within the consideration of Lao Li and Qin Sheng. Lao Li counted the number of refugees, which was about 3,000 people. You have to know that there were hundreds of thousands of people in the barrier at the beginning, and only 3,000 people escaped. The loss was incalculable. On the way, Ren Xiaosu was responsible for leading the way, while Lao Li and Qin Sheng volunteered to find food. The 2 of them often survived in the wilderness and were familiar with the wilderness. They found some wild vegetables and even hunted many prey, but Ren Xiaosu shook his head when he saw this. The food that 2 people could find was just a drop in the bucket for a team of more than 3,000 people. And what Ren Xiaosu was most worried about was not the lack of food, but the inability to distribute it evenly. If it could not be distributed evenly, it would be better to let all the refugees go hungry. After Lao Li and Qin Sheng found the food, they gave the wild vegetables to women first, and roasted the meat such as prey and cut it to share with the children among the refugees. As Ren Xiaosu worried, Someone immediately rushed out to ask where their food was. Lao Li patiently explained, "We have limited manpower, so how about this? I will tell you what wild vegetables you can eat, and you can go to the wilderness to pick them yourself, okay?" Seeing that Lao Li and Ken Sheng were easy to talk to, those people became more aggressive. "We don't know wild vegetables, what if we pick poisonous ones? Will you be responsible?" Then, Lao Li and Ken Sheng beat these people up. After they all lay on the ground and begged for mercy, Lao Li patted the dust off his hands and said, "If you want to eat, go pick it yourself. Do you understand?" Ren Xiaosu, who was standing next to him, was amused. He was a little worried that Lao Li and Ken Sheng were good people. He already knew that they were members of the Knights, and this refreshed Ren Xiaosu's view of the Knights. But something unexpected happened when they were camping that night. Ren Xiaosu was lying next to the campfire and preparing to sleep. Li Ran suddenly limped to his side, then lay behind him and hugged him from behind. Li Ran whispered, "Can you protect me?" Today, the plain-clothed officers took turns carrying her and were exhausted. Occasionally, they would say some complaining words, which made Li Ran feel very uncomfortable. At this helpless moment, even Fang Zhichao would only remain silent, so she thought of Ren Xiaosu. When the most critical moment came, it was Ren Xiaosu who led them out of a way to survive. The image of Ren Xiaosu running in front of the team and blowing up the barrier gate was something Li Ran would never forget in her life. But at this time, just as Li Ran finished speaking, Zhou Yingsu, who was on night watch, lifted Li Ran up and walked to the side. Li Ran was easily lifted up by Zhou Yingsu's hand, and looked at herself getting farther and farther away from Ren Xiaosu with a confused look on her face. Zhou Yingsu put Li Ran next to her and said earnestly, "Miss Li Ran, according to the contract, I protect you, but my master has no such obligation. He also has someone he likes. Don't do this." Li Ran was stunned and said, "Master. Master." Although she knew that Ren Xiaosu was definitely not Zhou Yingsu's assistant, she didn't expect that the contrast in identity was so great. Isn't Zhou Yingsu a transcendent? How could such a high-ranking person like a transcendent be subdued by others and become a maid? At this time, Ren Xiaosu was lying next to the campfire and did not fall asleep, but because he was worried, even Li Ran hugged him from behind, which did not divert his attention. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu was recalling the scene of the nuclear bomb explosion. The world was becoming more and more dangerous. In just a moment, the weapon that could kill gods destroyed the experimental subject. Will there be such weapons appearing in other barriers in the future? Will his lost friends and relatives be affected by this chaotic world? He also didn't know what happened to Lao Wang, Yan Liuan, Zhao Yuji, Wang Yuqi, Zhang Wu, etc. He was not with them. Did they protect themselves? All this was circling in Ren Xiaosu's mind. He was more and more eager to find these people. Only if he protected them himself could Ren Xiaosu feel at ease. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu saw a young man sitting in front of the campfire, holding a notebook and a pen in his hands, writing something hurriedly. Ren Xiaosu knew the other person. He was a reporter from Hope Media. The other person had witnessed Lao Su killing the experimental subject with his own eyes, and the photo of Lao Su in the Hope Media newspaper was also taken by the other person. Ren Xiaosu sat up and asked, "What are you writing?" The young reporter said, "I want to write down what happened today. My other colleagues have died in the line of duty. I am the only one who witnessed this. The outside world probably doesn't know what happened here, so I want to write the article and give it to the editor-in-chief when I get back. This is a day of suffering for mankind. The death toll of the residents of the rampart exceeded 200,000 in one day. All mankind should remember this day." On the side, Lao Li and Ken Sheng listened in silence. On the way, Lao Li and Ken Sheng knew that it was Ren Xiaosu who led them to open a way out, so they became more intimate with Ren Xiaosu. While Ren Xiaosu looked at the reporter from Hope Media, he suddenly thought that there was a way that might allow him to use Hope Media to find Yan Liuan and the others. If he found them, he wouldn't have to bother trying to use Anjing Temple. At this time, outside the Northwest 144 rampart, 4 trucks were driving towards the gate of the rampart. When the 4 trucks stopped, a group of people jumped off the trucks. A young boy shouted to the middle-aged man in the lead, "Uncle Fuge, is what you said reliable? Why don't I see any caravans coming and going here?" Wang Fuge wiped his face with a towel on the truck and smiled. "Don't you believe in your Uncle Fuge's ability? We used our savings to buy these 4 second-hand trucks, and they are loaded with good goods from the Central Plains, which can't be seen in the southwest and northwest. Don't look at it as shabby, but try it in another half a year. The 178 fortress will open up the lifeline of transportation to the Central Plains, and this 144 barrier is the closest barrier to the Central Plains. In half a year, this will definitely become the largest cargo distribution center in the entire Northwest. Chapter 578. Have you heard of Ren Xiaosu? The young man who asked the question was Wang Yuqi. He was originally Jiang Wu's student, but after several great changes, he followed Wang Fuge in the Central Plains for several months, and now his face has gradually matured. Everyone has suffered a lot along the way. Now when they arrived at the 144th fortress, everyone was exhausted. During this period, Wang Yuqi also showed his potential. He learned a lot from Wang Fuge and has become Wang Fuge's right-hand man. Wang Fuge said proudly, "We got here first and established a good relationship with the people in the 178th fortress. This is called seizing the opportunity. Others can wait for half a year to open the road, but we can't wait. Ren Xiaosu has left us with little savings. If we meet Xiaosu in the future, he will ask us how much money we have left. We can't lose face." Wang Yuqi suddenly fell silent. "Can we see Brother Xiaosu again?" Wang Fuge was stunned for a moment and smiled. "Of course we can. It is said that the evil will last for thousands of years, and he can't die. Then are the things we brought easy to sell?" Wang Yuqi changed the subject. Of course, Wang Fuge laughed cheerfully. "You see, we have advantages when doing business in the Northwest. You guys have nanorbits on you, and we also have teacher Jiang Wu, a superhuman. Ordinary bandits can't do anything to us. What's more, your female classmates are very clever and dexterous. The jewelry they weave is so beautiful. These accessories have been popular in the Central Plains for a long time, but the women in the Northwest have never seen them before. They will definitely like them at first sight." While speaking, Wang Fuge ran to the back of the carriage and opened the cargo box behind the box truck. He shouted to the opposite side, "Girls, get off the car quickly to get some fresh air. We are at the market town now. Uncle Fuge will treat you to a hot meal." In the carriage, Jiang Wuzhang was weaving bracelets with 4 or 5 female students. Wang Fuge had wanted to directly find someone to purchase the goods, but everyone felt that the purchase price of bracelets in the Central Plains was too high. Seeing that they were refugees, the other party deliberately raised the price. Later, Jiang Wu found that the raw materials of these bracelets were not expensive, so she volunteered to buy the raw materials. On the way to the Northwest, the girls could process the bracelets, which would save a lot of money. In fact, Jiang Wu wanted to find something for the female students to do. After all, everyone was in the same boat now. Even Wang Yuqi and his team had matured quickly, and there shouldn't be anyone in the team who was idle. After a long time, the female students who couldn't help were embarrassed. Now, Jiang Wu is also one of the backbones of the team. On the one hand, she urges students to study on their own. On the other hand, she is responsible for the food, clothing and expenses of the team, and on the other hand, she uses her abilities to protect this group of people. In the past, Jiang Wu's abilities did not have much presence in the team. It was only because Ren Xiaosu was too strong that Jiang Wu's extraordinary abilities had no place to use. Everything was done by Ren Xiaosu, and it was not Jiang Wu's turn to do anything. Now it's different. Although Wang Yuqi and others have nanorbits, these things have energy limits and are not strong enough. There are still sporadic bandits from the Central Plains to the Northwest, but when these bandits meet Jiang Wu, they are scared away by a few petals before they know what is going on. Moreover, if it weren't for the plum branches that Jiang Wu manifested with his extraordinary ability to pull everyone out, who knows where everyone would be washed away by the flood? Therefore, Wang Fuge now discusses everything with Jiang Wu. This trip contains not only bracelets, but also popular cosmetics and daily necessities in the Central Plains, which are basically things for women. According to Wang Fuge, although women are picky about things and many people don't like to do business with women, in fact, women's money is the easiest to make. Therefore, he bought these 4 second-hand trucks, 3/4 of which are lipsticks, skincare products, and conditioners of various scents. Lipstick is something that every woman must have. It is just like a man's cigarette, it is a rigid need. Moreover, the lipstick colors in the Central Plains are much more than those in the Southwest and Northwest, and they look fashionable. Wang Fuge required that Jiang Wu and other pretty girls must use his lipstick every day when they arrived in the Northwest, so that other women would feel moved when they saw it. You know, many people in the Southwest and Northwest are still at the level of using red paper to dye their lips. It's not that they can't afford it, but because the heavy industry in the Southwest and Northwest is developing, this kind of daily necessities is very scarce. Lao Wang felt that he had discovered a business opportunity at first glance. He had thought about how to promote it. When he arrived in the Northwest, he found a bunch of newspapers to promote chicken soup, saying that whether a man loves a woman depends on whether he is willing to buy Hangyoon lipstick for his beloved woman. Wang Fuge was originally the owner of a grocery store in the Southwest. He has been doing better and better for so many years. Of course, it is because he is good at discovering business opportunities and discovering customer needs. When the nobles in the 113 fortress in the Southwest suddenly took eating wild game as a symbol of status, it was also partly due to Wang Fuge's promotion of wild game. But will the 178 fortress agree to let us sell things like this? Wang Yuqi asked doubtfully. What are you afraid of? I know their commander Zhang Jinglin. Wang Fuge said proudly. With that, Wang Fuge took everyone to have lunch. There was a reason why he dared to bring everyone to the Northwest. Now everyone in the world knows that Zhang Jinglin has regained control of the 178 fortress, and the entire Northwest is the territory of the 178 fortress. He was an acquaintance of Zhang Jinglin in the market town before, and they had a good relationship. Coming to the Northwest now, isn't it very reliable? After lunch, Wang Fuge took Wang Yuqi straight to find the troops responsible for guarding the barrier. The first sentence after arriving was, I am a friend of your Commander Zhang, and I want to reminisce with Commander Zhang. Of course, the bigger the words, the better. People who can't brag can't do big business these days. As a result, an officer came out of that army, who was said to be the new commander of the 144th Fortress garrison. The commander smiled kindly and said, Brother, even if you don't know the commander, you can still do business in the Northwest. Just pay your taxes honestly. Our taxes have been reduced recently, and I guarantee you will make money. Wang Fuge was not discouraged. I really know your Commander Zhang. The commander laughed. Someone said the same thing the day before yesterday, but in the end it was discovered that the other party just wanted to see Commander Zhang, and the two parties didn't know each other. Wang Fuge was speechless. There were indeed some merchants who came to the Northwest to do business in advance like him, but they didn't expect that some of them who pretended to be acquaintances had been exposed. Wang Yuqi laughed at the side. Uncle Fuge, why don't we just sell things steadily? We can't meet the commander whenever we want, and he has said that we can do business with anyone who comes, and there is no need to get close to anyone. You kid, you don't know shit, Wang Fuge said with a gloomy face. Doing business is the same with or without someone above you, right? Suddenly, the head of the regiment asked, Are you from the Central Plains? Wang Fuge was stunned for a moment. Of course I am from the Central Plains. The head of the regiment suddenly asked again, Have you heard of a man named Ren Xiaosu in the Central Plains? Oh, let me introduce myself. My name is Zhang Xiaoman. Chapter 579, Excited Wang Fuge. When Wang Fuge heard the name Zhang Xiaoman asked, he was completely dumbfounded. Who are you asking about? Ren Xiaosu, Zhang Xiaoman asked casually. Haven't you heard of this name? Zhang Xiaoman was originally the company commander of the Spearhead Company. After the battle with the Zhuang family, because of his outstanding military exploits and because the 178 fortress now occupied more areas, they were in urgent need of manpower, so they directly promoted Zhang Xiaoman 3 levels and made him the commander of the infantry regiment stationed at the 144th fortress. Originally, Zhang Xiaoman was thinking about showing off to the old battalion commander Zhou Yinglong, but it turned out that Zhou Yinglong had been promoted to brigade commander. Now he is stationed at the 144th fortress, and he doesn't have much to do every day. He is responsible for protecting the safety of the 144th fortress, and by the way, he cooperates with the management team from the 178 fortress to reorganize the management system of the 144th fortress and make new personnel appointments. Finally, as Wang Fuge expected, the 178th fortress wanted to build the 144th fortress into the largest cargo distribution center in the entire Northwest. Zhang Xiaoman was in charge of this place, so the rear was relieved. But Zhang Xiaoman had been feeling that something was missing in his life recently. He was promoted 3 levels, but the biggest hero in this battle had left. According to what Zhang Xiaoman and Jiao Xiachen had agreed on, Ren Xiaosu must have gone to the Central Plains, so when he met Wang Fuge, a merchant from the Central Plains. He asked casually to see if he could get some information and see how Ren Xiaosu was doing recently. But the problem was that Wang Fuge was shocked when he heard the name Ren Xiaosu. There were not many people with the same name. He asked tentatively, "Why are you looking for this Ren Xiaosu?" Wang Fuge was afraid that Ren Xiaosu had caused some trouble here, and then the 178th fortress would want him. But Wang Fuge thought about it and realized that it was not right. Ren Xiaosu had a good relationship with Zhang Jinglin, and Zhang Jinglin would never want Ren Xiaosu for a trivial matter. Because of the confidentiality regulations issued by the 178th fortress, the outside world had no idea how much Ren Xiaosu played in the battle of the Zhuang family. They only knew that a supernatural person had made great contributions and defeated a combat brigade of the 146th fortress by himself, but no one knew who it was. Zhang Xiaoman glanced at Wang Fuge and said with a smile, "Brother, don't worry about why I'm looking for him. Forget it, there's no need to tell you more." At this time, Zhang Xiaoman suddenly remembered that they had a confidentiality regulation. He couldn't say much about Ren Xiaosu to avoid suspicion from the outside world, so he planned to return to the barracks. But Wang Fuge looked at Zhang Xiaoman and said, "I know Ren Xiaosu." Wang Fuge felt that there were two people in the 178th fortress, Zhang Jinglin and Su Xianshu, and it was highly likely that he would not embarrass Ren Xiaosu, so he took the gamble. And he observed Zhang Xiaoman's expression and thought that he should have made the right bet. Zhang Xiaoman was already excited. "You said you know Ren Xiaosu? Where is he now?" Wang Fuge shook his head. "I don't know where he is either, but he had been leading us to survive before. Later, we were separated because of the attack by the Zhuang family. He was also plotted against by the Zhuang family. We saw with our own eyes that he was pierced through the abdomen by a spear." Zhang Xiaoman was even more excited now. These words matched what Ren Xiaosu said. When Ren Xiaosu came to the 178 fortress, wasn't he injured and rescued by Wang Shengzi and Wang Shengyan? Ren Xiaosu said that he was against the Zhuang family for revenge. Ren Xiaosu also told them that after the battle, he would go to find his lost relatives and friends. But what Zhang Xiaoman didn't expect was that he would actually meet Wang Fuge here. However, Zhang Xiaoman was also very cautious. He immediately called the intelligence director Wang Fenging to confirm some things. After all, Ren Xiaosu's matter was top secret in the 178 fortress. What if this person in front of him came to spy on intelligence? Zhang Xiaoman had to be cautious. As soon as the call was connected, Zhang Xiaoman mentioned the names of Wang Fuge, Wang Yuqi, and Jiang Wu. Especially Jiang Wu, a superhuman with unique abilities. Wang Fenging immediately replied, "No need to investigate, he is the person Ren Xiaosu is looking for." Zhang Xiaoman excitedly pulled Wang Fuge and others into the barracks. "Brother, you are meeting your relatives. You don't know that when we fought against the Zhuang family, Ren Xiaosu and I were comrades in arms. He was in my sharp knife company and I was his company commander." Zhang Xiaoman was so excited that he was incoherent and muttered a lot. However, as he was talking, he found that Wang Fuge and others had red eyes. During this period, Wang Fuge always comforted everyone that Ren Xiaosu must be alive. But sometimes when he said it, he didn't believe it himself. After all, they saw Ren Xiaosu being pierced by a spear with their own eyes. How could a normal person survive such a blow? In addition, Ren Xiaosu encountered a flood after being injured, which made it even more impossible for him to survive. So, he said that Ren Xiaosu was alive because he wanted to leave a memory for himself and everyone, and to keep them alive with a breath. Now, they suddenly learned that Ren Xiaosu was really still alive, and he personally avenged everyone and destroyed the Zhuang family. This feeling was mixed in everyone's chest, as if they had eaten a whole onion, excited and wanted to cry. Moreover, Zhang Xiaoman said that when Ren Xiaosu fought so desperately, Wang Fuge and others immediately understood that it was because Ren Xiaosu thought that they were harmed by the Zhuang family, so he wanted to take revenge with hatred. The more desperate Ren Xiaosu was in the war, the more he hated the Zhuang family. The more he hated the Zhuang family, the more important Wang Fuge and others were in Ren Xiaosu's heart. "Then do you know where he is now?" Wang Fuge asked. "Let's go find him now." "I don't know," Zhang Xiaoman shook his head. "He disappeared after the war. I guess you must have gone to Central Plains to find you." Having said that, Wang Fuge turned around and walked out of the military camp, muttering to Jiang Wu as he walked, "Let's go back to Central Plains. Let's go back to Central Plains." He must be in Central Plains now. Let's go find him. Jiang Wu nodded. Okay, let's go. Before he took 2 steps, Zhang Xiaoman grabbed Wang Fuge. He said with a smile, even we can't find him, how can you find him? Okay, when you come to the northwest, you are a VIP of our 178 barrier. We will also help you find him. At least you will feel relieved to know that he is okay, right? By the way, what did you come to the northwest for? Oh, Wang Fuge wiped his eyes. We are here to do business. After all, there is such a big family. I have to take care of Ren Xiaosu when he's not around. Zhang Xiaoman suddenly patted his chest and said, in the future, if you want to do any business in the 144 fortress, tell me. Bring things from the Central Plains to sell, and then bring the mines from our 178 fortress back to the Central Plains. As long as it is the business of the 144 fortress, there is nothing you can't do. If someone asks, just say it was me, Zhang Xiaoman. Who said it? Wang Fuge was stunned for a long time. Your mines are too expensive, we can't afford them. Zhang Xiaoman patted his chest again. You can buy on credit, I said it. Wang Fuge stood in the military camp in the afternoon, the midday sun shining from the top of his head. Old Wang felt that the sun was particularly warm today. Please give me a monthly ticket, please give me a monthly ticket. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580, Finding Ren Xiaosu requires metaphysics. Wang Fuge's original intention was to return to the Central Plains as soon as possible. After all, Ren Xiaosu was in the Central Plains. Why did he go to the northwest? And Wang was very sure that Ren Xiaosu must have gone to the Central Plains to find them, so he had to go back. But Zhang Xiaoman refused to let him go. He arranged them in the military camp and prepared good food and hot water for them, saying that it would not be too late to leave in a few days. Zhang Xiaoman's reason for persuading Wang Fuge was also very simple. The Central Plains is so big, and our people from the 178 fortress are also looking for Ren Xiaosu in the Central Plains. With so many of us, aren't we better than you trying your luck? You don't know where Ren Xiaosu will appear. Zhang Xiaoman said, don't worry, we are very confident that we can find him. What do you mean? Wang Fuge was stunned for a moment. Why are you so sure to find him? Since you and Ren Xiaosu are old friends, do you know Su Xianshu? Zhang Xiaoman said. I don't really know him, but I know he's Xiaosu's good friend. Wang Fuge asked doubtfully, can Su Xianshu find Ren Xiaosu? Wang Fuge didn't believe this. After all, they were the closest to Ren Xiaosu. They didn't know where to find him, so how could Su Xianshu know? Zhang Xiaoman lowered his voice and said, Old Su told us that wherever Ren Xiaosu went, the barrier would collapse. Look, there's a barrier number 74 in the south of Zhangjiang that is being besieged. It might collapse one day. He suspected that Ren Xiaosu was there, so Wang Fuge has sent people on the way to barrier number 74. Maybe they can find him in a few days. Wang Fuge was stunned after hearing this. So you rely on metaphysics? Exclamation mark. Wherever Ren Xiaosu went, the barrier collapsed. Wang Fuge recalled carefully. Hey, it seems to be true. After thinking for a long time, Wang Fuge didn't know how to refute Zhang Xiaoman's words. However, Wang Fuge thought about it and decided that it would be more reliable to find someone in Fortress 178 than them, so he decided to wait for news here. At this time, the news that barrier number 74 had been destroyed had not yet spread to the northwest, and even the vast majority of people in the entire Barrier Alliance did not know what had happened to barrier number 74. They only knew that the people there had lost contact. Zhang Xiaoman took Wang Fuge to dinner, and then enthusiastically arranged goods for Wang Fuge. We originally thought that trade with the Central Plains would be opened in half a year, but we also underestimated the enthusiasm of the merchants. You can't go back with an empty truck this time, otherwise it will be a waste of fuel money. We have arranged everything for you here. You are not allowed to bring too much for the first time. I will prepare dozens of tons of potassium chloride for you first. Wang Fuge was confused when he heard it. He knew what potassium chloride was used for. This thing has many uses, and it can definitely be sold for money when it is taken back. In fact, Most of the Northwest minerals can be directly sold to Wangs when they are taken back to the Central Plains. The purpose of Wangs opening up the trade route is also for the mineral deposits in the Northwest. But Zhang Xiaoman started talking about dozens of tons, and Wang Fuge couldn't even form any concept of this unit of measurement. He hesitated and said, "We only have 4 second-hand trucks." Zhang Xiaoman didn't care. "I'll find you a truck." He asked the orderly to call people, and the people he called were all big households in this fortress, bosses of various companies. These people used to take shelter under the Zhuang family. After Fortress 178 took over the fortress, Zhang Jinglan said not to make things too difficult for these people. Zhang Xiaoman and the others understood immediately. Don't make things too difficult means that you can make things difficult, but don't force them to death. So, Zhang Xiaoman was just preparing to find an opportunity to control these big households, and now it's just right for this group of people to make contributions to Wang Fuge. After several big households came, Zhang Xiaoman directly asked to borrow a car, and borrowed a fleet of cars. If there were any extra cars after loading potassium chloride, he would load some nickel ore for Wang Fuge. Although the big households felt distressed, they dared not say anything. Seeing that Zhang Xiaoman was stationed next to the 144th barrier with his troops, he usually controlled their life and death. He was simply their father. But it was not over yet. Zhang Xiaoman felt that it was too hard for Wang Fuge to sell lipsticks in person, so he simply let these big households eat up the goods that Wang Fuge brought from the Central Plains. In the future, when Wang Fuge transported things back from the Central Plains, he could sell them directly to them. Several big households complained in their hearts, but some smart people suddenly realized that this would not be Zhang Xiaoman's own way of making money. Maybe Zhang Xiaoman couldn't ask for money directly, so he used this excuse of doing business to exploit them. But at this time, as long as they were smart, they would not refuse, and even responded positively on the surface. After these big guys left, Wang Fuge sat in the barracks for a long time. He had been doing business for half his life, but this was the first time he felt that doing business was not difficult at all. The 4 trucks of goods they brought were sold out before they even started selling. But Lao Wang didn't do anything too extreme. The price he gave these big guys was a little higher than the cost, but not too high. After all, if you want them to be your dealers for a long time in the future, it has to be a win-win situation, right? Lao Wang was not blinded by everything in front of him. He was still thinking about the future, not a one-time deal. You know, Lao Wang's mind has turned. With this relationship, he might become the toughest and most powerful businessman on this Northwest business road. In this way, their whole family can live a good life. Especially the good kind. And he clearly realized that all Zhang Xiaoman did was because of Ren Xiaosu. Because he was the relatives and friends that Ren Xiaosu was looking for, he was superior to others in the territory of Fort 178. Originally, Lao Wang told Wang Yuqi that one needs connections to do business, but Lao Wang himself did not expect that his connections were so strong. However, Lao Wang still couldn't figure it out. Ren Xiaosu did help the 178th fortress fight, but it shouldn't be that serious for Zhang Xiaoman to be so rude. How could Zhang Xiaoman have such great power to buy dozens of tons of potassium chloride on credit? This is $1 million supply. Just when Wang Fuge was confused, Jiao Xiachen was also asking Zhang Xiaoman privately, "Captain, you are so bold, aren't you really selling it on credit? We don't have to do this, right?" "What do you know?" Zhang Xiaoman said proudly, "Otherwise why am I the captain and you are only the deputy captain?" Jiao Xiachen's face turned black in an instant, and he wanted to kick Zhang Xiaoman. "Why don't you tell me your reason?" Zhang Xiaoman whispered, "Didn't you hear what Lao Wang said? He is actually the shopkeeper of Ren Xiaosu. The assets and money are to be given to Ren Xiaosu, that is to say, this is all the money earned for Ren Xiaosu. If Ren Xiaosu comes to you and asks for dozens of tons of potassium chloride on credit, can you say no?" After Ren Xiaosu finds Lao Wang and finds out that he has such a large industry in the Northwest, can he not go back to the Northwest? "We just want to use this industry to tie Lao Wang and others down first. Lao Wang and others can't run away, and Ren Xiaosu can't run away either." Jiao Xiachen pondered, "It seems to make sense, continue. And now Ren Xiaosu is back. Maybe he will be the commander of our 178th fortress in a few years," Zhang Xiaoman muttered mysteriously. "I heard from Lao Zhou a few days ago that at their high-level meeting, Wang Fengyan has suggested increasing the efforts to find Ren Xiaosu. hoping to find him back to systematically learn military command knowledge, and then let him get familiar with the various combat sequences. The other generals didn't object. No objection means tacit consent. Jiao Ziachin took a breath. Systematically learning military command knowledge and getting familiar with various combat sequences? What kind of officer needs to learn in this direction? Isn't it the commander? Zhang Xiaoman laughed cheerfully and said, in fact, the most important thing is that the generals recognize Ren Xiaosu. It's not that everyone thinks Ren Xiaosu can be the commander now, but they recognize that he has the potential, his strength, courage, and character. It is not easy to achieve this, so some of the obstacles that Ren Xiaosu faces in taking over as commander a few years or even a dozen years later were cleared in the battle with the Zhuang family. Think about it, we are now saving up assets for the next commander. Do you think it's worth it? But if the commander asks about this batch of potassium chloride, don't worry, if Ren Xiaosu can come back, I guess the commander would be willing to give this batch of potassium chloride directly to Lao Wang, instead of buying it on credit. Chapter 581 Me Too. At this time, Ren Xiaosu and his team had already set off again, heading towards barrier number 73. Without the threat of the experimental subjects behind them, this escape was not that tense. At night, after Zhou Yingsu took Li Ran away, the two of them whispered to each other for half the night. It seemed that because Li Ran had just encountered a setback and was in a relatively fragile relationship, he talked a lot to Zhou Yingsu. From kindergarten to high school graduation, and then why he debuted as a singer, and what he experienced after becoming a singer, it seemed that he was talking to Zhou Yingsu. Zhou Yingsu also listened with relish, and even asked Li Ran if she could also debut. In the morning, Ren Xiaosu found that the plainclothes officers were unwilling to carry Li Ran anymore, but Zhou Yingsu carried him on her back. After this disaster, Li Ran decided to cancel the tour, which meant that Zhou Yingsu had completed her mission. When Li Ran informed Anjing Temple of the end of the mission, Zhou Yingsu's reward also came. However, after paying the reward, Anjing Temple still hoped to get specific information about barrier number 74 from Zhou Yingsu. They wanted to know what happened. Zhou Yingsu looked at Ren Xiaosu. Can you tell them, Master? Li Ran listened silently but did not speak. Ren Xiaosu thought for a while and said, why not make money? We didn't blow up barrier 74. So Zhou Yingsu sent the news about barrier 74 being hit by a nuclear bomb to Anjing Temple, and got another million. Ren Xiaosu thought that Anjing Temple was really rich. One piece of news was worth 1 million? You know, Hope Media will publish the whole story right away, so they are making money for nothing. On the way forward, the reporter from Hope Media kept running back and forth in front of the team. After a refugee agreed, he took a picture of the refugee fleeing and used it as a picture for future publication. Ren Xiaosu avoided it at this time. He thought that if he was in the newspaper, it would be easier to find relatives and friends, but he thought that it would be dangerous for him. Old Li ran to ask Ren Xiaosu if the mushroom cloud in the fortress was also created by Ren Xiaosu. He had seen Ren Xiaosu blow up the wall of the fortress before. Although he didn't know how he did it, he was quite impressed. And the mushroom cloud before was obviously caused by a supernatural being, so he thought of Ren Xiaosu. Because they had met once before, the two knights spent a lot of time chatting with Ren Xiaosu on the way, and they became more familiar with each other. But when old Li asked about the mushroom cloud, Ren Xiaosu just pretended to be stupid. How could he let others know his trump card casually? Although he was more familiar with the knights now, there was no need to be open with everyone. That afternoon, the refugees finally welcomed Zhou's support troops. Everyone saw Zhou's troops as if they had seen their relatives. Zhou's troops did not disappoint the refugees and directly took these people away with the military trucks. The other part of Zhou's troops continued to advance towards barrier number 74. After being informed that barrier number 74 was destroyed by a nuclear bomb, Zhou's troops did not go deep into the battlefield directly, but slowed down their pace and waited for the chemical protection suits to be transported from the rear. The refugees scrambled for the individual rations of Zhou's troops in the car. Everyone was hungry for too long and could not bear it anymore. Suddenly, Li Ran looked at Feng Zhi in the car. Where are Ren Xiaosu and Zhou Yingsu? And Li Yingyan and Qin Xing are also missing. Feng Zhi was also puzzled. I remember they got on the car with us, why are they gone? Li Ran turned his head and looked outside the truck bed, where there was only the scenery that was gradually moving away. She had experienced so many incredible things along the way that she had almost forgotten the serious performances. She only remembered the back of the boy rushing out of the barrier with the crowd. When she thought that Zhou Yingxu should be wandering around the world with her master again, she felt a little envious and a little lost. Maybe if someone else meets these two people, Ren Xiaosu will become Zhou Yingxu's assistant again, mysterious and low-key. Li Ran just didn't know if she would have the chance to contact that mysterious world. At this moment, she understood Mu Wange a little. Li Ran glanced at Mu Wange beside her, then sighed. At a certain moment, I also wanted to be his mate and travel around the world with him. Mu Wange, me too. Li Ran. After the refugees arrived at barrier number 73, they were not immediately accepted by barrier number 73, but went through a series of radiation inspections. Zhou Yingxu and others bought a new vehicle in the market town and went directly to Wang's barrier without going through such an inspection. The reporter from Hope Media took their car to Los Angeles. 3 days later, the newspapers of Hope Media caused an uproar in the entire Barrier Alliance. On this day, the newspapers of Hope Media were swept away, and the same was true for all the barriers. Hope Media had no choice but to print more than 100,000 copies of newspapers again, but it was still not enough. The nuclear bomb incident at Barrier 74 even gradually overshadowed the impact of the experimental subjects. After all, the experimental subjects were dead, and there was no need for everyone to discuss the experimental subjects. The nuclear bomb was the new threat. Moreover, the old era and civilization were destroyed because of this thing. Now that it appears again, it is difficult for people not to think in a bad direction. It's like being bitten by a snake once. You are afraid of the rope for 10 years. No, to be more precise, once bitten by a snake, you are afraid of snake bites for 10 years. This is a real snake. In just one day, everyone started to discuss this matter. Some people said that this nuclear bomb was aimed at the experimental subjects, not at humans, and it was a good thing to eliminate harm for the people. But more people thought that this kind of thing should not be used by force again. Moreover, what if there are still survivors in Barrier 74? Wouldn't this blow up the survivors? What's more, if a nuclear bomb is dropped, the entire Barrier 74 may not be accessible to humans for 50 years. This kind of thing still has a great impact. The impact of the nuclear bomb even caused everyone to ignore the Spark Company. Before that, everyone was denouncing the Spark Company for creating monsters. Humans are so forgetful that they forget the pain after the scar heals. At this time, everyone wanted to see how the various consortiums would react. After all, this kind of thing was the biggest threat to the consortium. While other consortiums were still silent, the Wang Consortium suddenly held a press conference. At this press conference, the Wang Consortium directly pointed the finger at the Qing Consortium, protesting against the Qing Consortium on the one hand, and hoped to unite other barriers to negotiate with the Qing Consortium on the other hand. They hoped that the Qing Consortium would give up the continued development of nuclear weapons, otherwise they would take sanctions. The future of mankind needs to be protected by mankind together. The Qing Consortium should not turn itself into a hidden danger to mankind. The current human barrier alliance is too fragile. Chapter 582 I Can't Leave. In this storm, the most disappointing thing for the Hope Media reporter was that he took a lot of photos of refugees, hoping that everyone would pay more attention to the disaster itself and these refugees. But in fact, everyone quickly forgot about the refugees situation, which made the reporter a little sad. After Wang pointed the finger at Qing, everyone began to wait for the reaction of other consortiums, but other consortiums suddenly seemed to lose their voices and remain silent. Some reporters came to interview the top executives of Kong and Zhou, but they were all blocked. In fact, everyone is not stupid. Wang suddenly jumped out, so why did you have to bring us up in front of the reporters? They really have nuclear bombs. And they can't figure it out. Knowing that Qing has nuclear weapons, how dare Wang jump out like this? Aren't they afraid of death? Or, does Wang have other confidence? If there is no confidence, then Wang's jumping out seems a bit fierce. Before these problems are figured out, they can only remain silent. In recent years, Zhou and Kong have gradually begun to feel the pressure from Wang, otherwise Zhou Shiji would not have taken the initiative to make friends with Luolan. However, after a nuclear bomb was dropped, the whole situation suddenly became chaotic, making it difficult for everyone to distinguish who is the enemy and who is the friend. Or to be more precise, everyone except themselves is an enemy, but they just can't tell who is the greater threat. Joe's mood is very complicated about this nuclear bomb. The experimental subjects are a headache for them. If there is no nuclear bomb, they don't know how to deal with the problem of experimental subjects. They are unwilling to let them use firepower to directly cover the entire number 74 barrier. Now Qing has helped them solve this problem. Everyone understands that Qing only dropped the nuclear bomb after things are irreversible. It seems that they don't want to hurt innocent people, but after this nuclear bomb, the area around number 74 barrier will be ruined. Since you, Qing, have the courage to use nuclear bombs to deal with the experimental subjects directly, why don't you use it when the experimental subjects are on your own territory? Exclamation mark. Therefore, Zhou Shiji felt that the establishment of diplomatic relations with the Qing family should be put on hold until they can see the situation clearly. As time passed, reporters from Hope Media traveled thousands of miles to the Qing family to ask what the Qing family thought about this matter and whether they would give up nuclear weapons. As a result, the Qing family's answer was too surprising. The Qing family's spokesperson was puzzled. This nuclear bomb was not launched by us. Why did the Wang family point the finger at us? Can the consortium make up stories now? The reporters were stunned on the spot. When the whole world thought that this was done by the Qing family itself did not admit it. Looking back at this time, it seems that there is no evidence that the Qing family did it. The various consortiums were speechless. Everyone knew that the nuclear test base in Hongyan was destroyed by the thugs, and only the Qing family still had the strength, but they did not have this evidence. The Qing family was obviously trying to cheat and quibble. I don't know whether they want to delay time or to make this muddy water more muddy. Before everyone could figure it out, Luo Lan, who is a guest at Kong's, actually began to accept interviews publicly. Logically speaking, the most important thing Luo Lan should do now is to leave Hongyan and return to Qing's territory. Even Zhou Qi tried hard to persuade Luo Lan to leave quickly. If this was really a joint arrest warrant by the consortium, Zhou Qi couldn't protect Luo Lan. But Luo Lan not only refused to leave, but also swaggered and began to accept interviews. Isn't it infuriating? Facing the reporters, Luo Lan said sadly, "Don't frame our Qing family casually. Just because Wang family said it was lost by us, does it mean it was really lost by us? Many people know that the thugs wanted to destroy our nuclear test base in the southwest, but they didn't find it either. We don't have this thing, how can they find it? Wang family can't frame us casually." The reporter was confused. Then what do you think about this matter? Luo Lan was even more sad and almost cried. No matter who blew it up, I feel it was a good thing. According to the reporter from Hope Media, barrier number 74 had already fallen at that time, right? This means that no matter whether there are survivors inside, they will be torn to pieces by the experimental subjects. Our Qing family has fought many battles with the experimental subjects. When the Li family's barrier was attacked by the experimental subjects, our Qing family suffered heavy losses when we went to support them. It is a pity that the Li family could not withstand the attack of the experimental subjects. In order to allow the residents of the Li family's barrier to live and work in peace, our Qing family took over their barrier. In Luo Lan's words, they occupied the Li's fortress for justice. They wanted to support the Li's, but the Li's couldn't hold on. It was all the test subjects' fault. This compassionate tone was like that of a philanthropist. Luo Lan wiped her tears and continued, "No matter who blew up the number 74 fortress, I, Luo Lan, would like to thank you first. You have avenged the people in the southwest, the residents of number 74 fortress, and the mankind." As he spoke, Luo Lan bowed deeply to the camera. "Thank you." The reporters were all dumbfounded. When the consortium read the reporter's report, they almost cursed him for being shameless. The Kong consortium member next to Luo Lan smiled and said after the reporter left, "Boss Luo is not afraid of danger. Such a big thing happened, but he was still as calm as ever when he was a guest at my Kong's. I admire you." This was not a lie, but he really admired him. Putting aside other things, at least he had to give Luo Lan 100 points for his acting skills and courage. The Kong family's people did not ask whether the Qing family had nuclear weapons. They never looked at the evidence when doing things. Everyone knew that it was the Qing family who did it, so there was no need to ask any further questions. But Luo Lan narrowed his eyes. "This is just the beginning. Not only am I a guest at your Kong's, but I'm also going to Wang's in a few days. I'll see who dares to touch me." After the people from Kong's left, Luo Lan collapsed on the sofa. He asked Zhou Qi, "I'm so panicked now. Do you think they will really tie me up?" Jokey didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Since you're so worried, then hurry back to Qing's overnight. A few days ago, when you went out on the street, the people in the barrier were pointing fingers at you behind your back. I guess if you go to Wang's, won't someone throw rotten eggs on your head? You know, now the official media of Wang's, those newspapers have all begun to portray Qing as the big villain. I can't leave. Luo Lan stood up and looked out the window and said, Qing's is at the center of the storm, and Qingzhen also needs someone in Central Plains to muddy the water and buy time for him. I can't leave. Please give me a monthly ticket. Please give me a monthly ticket. Chapter 583, finally arrived in Los Angeles. Old Li, I've always been curious about the relationship between your knights and King group, Ren Xiaosu asked on the way out of barrier number 74. People outside say that the knights belong to King group, but I always feel that you are more like free people. When Zhou's troops received the refugees, Ren Xiaosu, Zhou Yingsu, Li Yingyan and Qin Xing left the team. They didn't want to have any contact with Zhou's troops, let alone radiation monitoring. Fortunately, Ren Xiaosu had something to do with Hope Media in Los Angeles, so the four of them went together. Old Li heard Ren Xiaosu's question and said, actually, this is not a secret. It doesn't matter if I tell you. Before the disaster, the Knights and King group just had the same boss. The two parties did not have a subordinate relationship. They were more like two equal organizations. Later, when the disaster began, the Knights assisted the founder in saving King group, and the relationship between the two sides became closer. Before that, the two sides rarely even dealt with each other. I see, Ren Xiaosu nodded. At this time, Old Li sighed and said, those predecessors died or were injured in order to preserve the foundation of King. Now that the Qing family has nuclear weapons, there may be another disaster one day. Ren Xiaosu shook his head. I don't think so. I always think that weapons depend on who uses them. Based on my understanding of Qingzhen and Luolan, they will not abuse this kind of weapon. Oh. Old Li looked at Ren Xiaosu in surprise. Brother Xiaosu, do you know the two heroes of the Qing family well? Ren Xiaosu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What the hell was the old-fashioned name for the two heroes of the Qing family? He said, I used to live in the southwest and fled to the Central Plains because of the invasion of experimental subjects. I have dealt with both Qingzhen and Luolan. I think that although they are not good people, they are definitely not bad people. I hope that your knight organization will not look at them with prejudice. Ren Xiaosu and Luolan have a very good relationship, so at this time, he is still happy to say something for the other party so that the Qing family can have fewer enemies. But when Old Li heard this, he suddenly paid attention to other things. He already knew Ren Xiaosu's name, which was only one letter different from Ren Xiaobai, and the boy next to him was also a transcendent, and he looked very powerful. Old Li didn't think much about it before, because they thought that even if the knights are alive to be 100 years old, he should be very old, at least middle-aged, so he didn't think much about Ren Xiaosu. But now, he heard that Ren Xiaosu was also from the southwest, and he was a little confused. Old Li looked at Ren Xiaosu vaguely. He was pretty handsome. Could this be the person they and the experimental subjects were looking for? Exclamation mark. However, Lao Li did not say much, but kept this worry in his heart. The two sides would have intersections in Luocheng, and Lao Li had to sort out the details first. Ren Xiaosu asked casually, I heard that King Group is now managed by Su Ke of the Su family, and the Su family said that they are only managing for the major shareholders. Is this Su family really so fair and selfless, without any selfish motives? I don't know about others. Lao Li was interrupted by this. He said, Su Ke's lineage in the Su family is still very upright and has never thought about things that do not belong to them, but it is hard to say about the other people in the Su family. Although Su Ke is the only heir for 3 generations, he still has some relatives and friends. Those people are not very peaceful. Forget it, why tell you this? Ren Xiaosu suddenly realized that there were conflicts within King Group. When they arrived in Luocheng, Ren Xiaosu and his friends registered at the gate to enter the barrier. Because of the knight's companionship, everything went smoothly. However, Ren Xiaosu saw a lot of people coming in and out of the gate of Luo City, so he asked Lao Li, some of these people look like refugees to me. Can they come in and out freely? Oh, you mean this, Lao Li said with a smile. Many of them have work visas and trade visas in the barrier. They can come in and out within the visa period. Of course, They have to come out before the gate closes at 10 p.m. Only those with study abroad visas can stay in the barrier until the end of their studies. After successfully graduating from their studies, they can directly obtain a residence ID card and settle down. Ren Xiaosu thought this was quite novel. How many children from other barriers come to take the college entrance examination? Can refugees take the exam? Of course they can. Refugees can also be admitted to university, and King University has specially reserved some indicators for refugees, which is to encourage refugees to change their destiny with knowledge. As long as they are admitted to university, they can become people of the barrier, Qin Sheng explained on the side, so there will be tutoring classes outside Luo City. Some teachers in the barrier like to come to the market town to make extra money. This can also be regarded as a unique industrial chain in Luo City. Ren Xiaosu nodded. This was like preparing a path for refugees to rise. Although it was just a single plank bridge, it was enough for refugees to have hope. Qin Sheng glanced at Ren Xiaosu and continued, we once wanted to open the barrier, but you know that this would make enemies with other financial groups, so we can only use this method. I understand, Ren Xiaosu nodded. In this era, anyone who dares to be different needs courage. It is not easy for King Group to be willing to leave a path for refugees to rise. What qualifications do others have to ask for more? Qin Sheng continued, but even if it is just this, it has made many financial groups dissatisfied. There are often financial group representatives who come to King Group to negotiate, hoping that they can prohibit refugees from entering the barrier like the financial group. As they were talking, they had already entered the barrier. There was already a car from King Group waiting inside the gate. Lao Li asked a car to take Ren Xiaosu and Zhou Yingxu to the Hope Media Building, while they were eager to meet up with other knights and hold a meeting. This meeting was held within the knights. Too many things have happened recently, some of which were related to the knights, so a result must be discussed quickly. The two sides said goodbye, and the journey ended here. When they arrived at the bottom of the Hope Media Building, Ren Xiaosu got out of the car and looked at the Hope Media Building. It looked quite old and was not as impressive as the other buildings in the barrier. Just looking at the facade, it was hard to imagine that this was the headquarters of the world-famous Hope Media. Ren Xiaosu explained his purpose to the security guard at the door, saying that he was here to place an advertisement, and a staff member from the business department immediately came out to contact him. The staff member was not very old, probably the same age as Zhou Yingxu. He smiled and said, "Which company are you two from? What kind of advertisement do you want to place, and how much space do you want?" Chapter 584 The Weight of a Sentence. The staff of the business department greeted the two people and walked into the building. Let me introduce myself. My name is Yin Yazheng, and I am the director of the business department of Hope Media. Please go upstairs to chat. After Ren Xiaosu walked into the building, he looked around the interior of Hope Media. There were staff coming and going, and there was no particularly strict security. It was like a very ordinary office building. You know, Hope Media is said to have made many enemies over the years, and the number of times it offended the consortium is simply countless. Shouldn't such a company be more cautious? On the 7th floor, as soon as Ren Xiaosu got out of the elevator, he heard a loud voice that seemed to be scolding someone. An old man with a cane said to a young man, "Journalists must respect facts. Don't you know what the problem is with the article you wrote yesterday? Have you investigated it? Have you collected evidence? It is absolutely wrong to attract readers' attention based on your own imagination. Every newspaper that comes out of here must be true for future generations. When they pick up a copy of the current Hope Media newspaper decades later, they will immediately know the truth of today. This is what we have to do." The young reporter said, "But other newspapers are also. Others are others. Hope Media is Hope Media." The old man with a cane said, "Don't forget what your original intention was to enter this industry. Is it for a fame and fortune? If you want fame and fortune, I will write a letter of recommendation for you to King Group. What we Hope Media has to do is to respect facts and record history." The young reporter stopped talking. Yin Yazheng smiled at Ren Xiaosu and Zhou Yingxu and said, "Sorry to make fun of you. Our editor-in-chief has a bad temper. Please come this way." He took Ren Xiaosu and Zhou Yingxu to the conference room. Ren Xiaosu saw big red characters on the wall of the conference room, "Seek truth from facts." Ren Xiaosu didn't think there was anything wrong with the editor-in-chief getting angry at the reporter. Instead, he trusted Hope Media even more. Yin Yazheng sat across the conference table and asked kindly, What kind of advertisement do you want to place? It's very simple. Ren Xiaosu smiled and took out a piece of paper. Just publish it at the bottom of the 5th page, occupying a quarter of the page. Ying Yazhang took the paper, which had only 2 lines of words. The first line, don't let the sorrow of the times become your sorrow. The second line, 61. This was the solution Ren Xiaosu came up with. Since Hope Media's newspapers are all over the Central Plains, if old Wang was in the Central Plains, he would definitely buy such an influential newspaper to follow current affairs. Wang Fuga looks like he smiles all day long, but he is very thoughtful and reliable. When Ren Xiaosu is still in the market town, he often saw him reading Qing's official media newspaper when he went to old Wang's grocery store. He said that he wanted to understand what major events had happened recently and not be out of touch with the times. So Ren Xiaosu wanted to place an advertisement in Hope Media's newspaper. Whether it was Yan Liwen or Wang Fuge, they would immediately think of him when they saw this sentence. He said this to Yan Liwen in front of Lao Wang, and Sister Xiaoyu even occasionally mentioned it in front of other people, so it was a very iconic statement. The 61 below meant that he was going to continue to settle in barrier number 61 soon, and if Lao Wang and others saw this, they should come to barrier number 61 to find him. This hint was not too obscure, but only Lao Wang and Yan Liwen knew what it meant. Ying Yazhang looked at the note and asked in confusion, "You just published this advertisement?" Generally, people who come to Hope Media to publish advertisements are companies doing corporate publicity, such as the highly profitable industries of selling clothes and cosmetics, and the advertisement that Ren Xiaosu wants to publish does not seem to have any utilitarian purpose. Could it be that some spy is using it to pass on the code? Ying Yazhang was puzzled. Hope Media often encounters this kind of thing. For example, the earliest way for the knight to contact was to use Hope Media newspapers to pass on the code, and he could find the information he wanted by looking for words in the newspaper according to the code book. However, no spy would occupy the 5th page so high-profilely. The first 4 pages do not accept advertisements, and the price of the 5th page is extremely expensive. Ying Yazhang glanced at Ren Xiaosu and said, "I wonder what the purpose of the advertisement you two put up is." Ren Xiaosu smiled and said, "Just think of it as spreading positive energy." "What does this 61 mean?" Ying Yazhang asked. "Oh, 61 is Children's Day. I want to wish everyone a happy Children's Day in advance," Ren Xiaosu explained without blushing. Ying Yazhang wanted to say on the spot that "I don't believe you, it's still a long way from Children's Day," he said patiently, "Sir, it's only November now." "Well, our advertisement will be put up until June 1st next year," Ren Xiaosu said with a smile. "How much does it cost?" This shocked Ying Yazhang, and Zhou Yingxu beside him felt distressed. "This 5th page occupies a quarter of the advertising space. How much money will it cost to put it up for more than half a year?" Ying Yazhang roughly calculated it, and then said to Ren Xiaosu, "Sorry, this business is a little big, I can't make the decision, please wait." The advertising amount alone is more than 2 million, and the problem is that he can't figure out the intentions of Ren Xiaosu and Zhou Yingxu. Before Ying Yazhang had been out for long, Ren Xiaosu heard the sound of a cane hitting the ground outside the door, and then the editor-in-chief pushed the door open. His gray hair was combed meticulously, and he was wearing a black mousesuit, looking energetic. The editor-in-chief came to the conference table, picked up the note on the table and asked, "Is this the advertisement that the 2 guests want to publish?" Ying Yazhang next to him said, "Yes." As a result, the editor-in-chief was stunned after taking a look at the note, and couldn't help but mutter, "Don't let the sadness of the times become your sadness." He looked up at Ren Xiaosu and asked, "Who said this?" "I said it," Ren Xiaosu said. "Why did you say this?" the editor-in-chief continued to ask. "Because I want to warn my brother not to go with the flow in this era," Ren Xiaosu said seriously. "I'm publishing this advertisement now just because I think I should tell more people about this." The editor-in-chief laughed. He didn't trust Xiaosu's nonsense reason, but he liked this sentence in an instant. The editor-in-chief looked at the note for a long time and suddenly said, "For this advertisement, you only need to pay 20% of the fee, 400,000, which is the advertising fee for the 2-word 61. I will waive the rest for you. I will not ask you what your purpose is in publishing this advertisement. I will publish it for you until June 1st next year." Ying Yazhang beside him was stunned. He waived 1.6 million in an instant. Ren Xiaosu was also confused. "What are you trying to do?" The editor-in-chief shook the note in his hand and said, "This sentence is worth so much money." At this moment, Ren Xiaosu was touched. It turned out that in this era, there are still people who regard a sentence as so valuable. Chapter 585 Old Friend, Magician Li Shenton. During this period, too many things happened in the territory of the Barrier Alliance, including the Southwest War, the Northwest War, and the nuclear attack on Barrier Number 74. All of this made everyone panic. When the editor-in-chief walked on the streets of Los Angeles, he could hear people discussing these wars. This era was gradually collapsing, and the order that humans had just established was also gradually collapsing. He just scolded the reporter because the other party made up news in order to become famous. It was not fabricated, but he just listened to other people's one-sided words and wrote the article without investigation or evidence collection. The title was also very sensational. The reporter said that other newspapers did the same, so that everyone's newspapers could sell better, and reporters who wrote such reports would become famous quickly. But the times are like this, should we go with the flow of the times? The editor-in-chief wanted to go against the current. The editor-in-chief looked at Ren Xiaosu and said, "Okay, this sentence will be published tomorrow. My name is Jiangsu. I am very happy to meet you, or to be more precise, I am very happy to see such a sentence." Ren Xiaosu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The other party's implication was that he was not very interested in him. Ren Xiaosu stood up and asked Zhou Yingsu to pay the 400,000 yuan. This money was laundered by Zhou Yingsu, and no one could find the trace. The rest of the money had to go to the black market before it could be used again. It happened that the black market was next to Luocheng. After leaving the building of Hope Media, Zhou Yingsu excitedly said beside him, "Master, this Jiangsu is a legendary figure. He exempted 1.6 million yuan just because of your words. Master, you are too powerful." "Okay, flattery should be stopped at the right time," Ren Xiaosu said. "Okay." It was getting late, and Ren Xiaosu took Zhou Yingsu straight to the hotel in Luocheng. He suddenly became interested in this barrier city and wanted to spend a day before leaving, so as not to delay any business. After booking 2 rooms, the hotel service in Luocheng was as friendly and considerate as the black market. Ren Xiaosu sat by the French window in the room and looked at the newspaper that he had just taken out from Hope Media. The newspaper was today's. Ren Xiaosu thought that he had already paid 400,000 yuan, so taking a newspaper was nothing, just a gift. The newspapers were still full of big pages discussing Zhou's Barrier 74. Zhou had formed a new rescue team to go to Barrier 74 to see if it was possible to rebuild it, or to choose a new site to build a new Barrier 74. After that, it was still criticizing Spark. Other newspapers had basically forgotten about Spark. After all, nuclear bombs were the hot topic now. Hope Media was different. It still hoped that Spark could make their research public in the newspaper to prove that their current research did not violate scientific ethics. The third page started to talk about the Qing family and Luolan. The reporter even praised Luolan for his courage. However, when Ren Xiaosu saw Luolan thanking the person who launched the nuclear bomb with tears in his eyes, he almost laughed out loud. This fat guy was really shameless. Finally, he turned to the entertainment page. The biggest news was that Li Ren had returned to Barrier 61. Fans lined the streets to greet him and comfort their idol. When night fell, Zhou Yingsu suddenly knocked on the door and said she was going out for dinner. Ren Xiaosu put down the newspaper and went out together. As Ren Xiaosu just walked out of the hotel door, Lao Li and Qin Xing suddenly came out of the hotel kitchen, asked the hotel front desk for the room card and went to open Ren Xiaosu's door. The two were very cautious. Before entering the room, they checked whether there were any traps left by Ren Xiaosu, but there was nothing. "Search every corner to see if there are any hair left by him," Lao Li said. Hair loss is not exclusive to middle-aged people. If Ren Xiaosu had taken a shower in the room, there must be hair on the floor. The two searched the room thoroughly with gloves, but unfortunately found nothing. Lao Li was puzzled and said, he took a shower after entering the hotel in the afternoon, but there was not a single hair on the floor of the bathroom. Did he pick up all the hair on purpose? Qin Xing scratched his head. It may be that his hair quality is better. What should we do now? What else can we do? Lao Li said unhappily, of course, come and look for it tomorrow. What if he is not? Qin Xing asked curiously. If not, we have no loss, Lao Li said, we are just looking for her to identify it. What if it is true? Qin Sheng asked. If that's true. Old Li frowned. They didn't know this boy well enough, so it was hard to say whether they could accept this result. Old Li sighed. At least he's a normal person, and he doesn't look bad. Although he doesn't seem to be very good at fighting, this result is not far from what we expected. Although Old Li and his friends talked a lot with Ren Xiaosu along the way, from his appearance, they always felt that Ren Xiaosu was thin and weak and not very good at fighting. Everyone in their night organization was a powerful, extraordinary person. Could such a boy really control such an organization? Old Li was skeptical. You know, although the knights believed in Ren He, they didn't necessarily have to recognize Ren He's descendants as their main. They still had to see what kind of person the other person was. For example, knights like Zhang Qingxi and Wu Dingin looked kind, but they were more arrogant than each other. But Old Li and Qin Sheng didn't know what Ren Xiaosu had done in the northwest and southwest, and what role Ren Xiaosu played in the farce between Anjing Temple and Huazhan Company some time ago. If they knew, they probably wouldn't think that Ren Xiaosu couldn't fight. At this moment, Ren Xiaosu didn't know what was happening in his room. Two famous knights sneaked into his room just to find his hair. The Knight of Los Angeles was very prosperous, much more prosperous than Ren Xiaosu had imagined. Even the foundation of a consortium like Barrier Number 73 couldn't compare. Probably because Los Angeles allowed free trade, the business here was more developed. And the atmosphere of King Group was the same, encouraging innovation, encouraging strange ideas, and encouraging business. The university here was also more free. Unlike other consortiums, all students had to devote themselves to the scientific research work of the consortium itself. King University is now the only university in the entire Barrier Alliance that has always been open to art disciplines. When he came to the square, Ren Xiaosu could still see people playing guitar and singing, and he could also see people doing performance art, painting themselves with fancy colors. Master, someone is doing magic over there, Zhou Yingxia suddenly shouted happily. But when Ren Xiaosu turned around and saw the magician, he turned around and left. The young magician smiled across the crowd and said, "When old friends meet, shouldn't we say hello?" Chapter 586, The Gold Given by Li Shanton. In the square, Ren Xiaosu wanted to leave directly, but the magician's words made him stop. He looked back and saw Li Shanton standing in the crowd, holding a deck of cards in his hand. He had just stopped performing magic. The crowd around Li Shanton looked at Ren Xiaosu, and Ren Xiaosu put on a hood to avoid being remembered by too many people. Li Shanton laughed when he saw Ren Xiaosu stop and said, "Wait a moment, let me finish this magic show." As he said that, the crowd looked back at Li Shanton, only to see the cards in Li Shanton's right hand suddenly surge into the sky like a spring. He obviously only had a stack of cards in his hand, but the cards flying above everyone's heads were spinning and flying like a blanket covering the sky. Slowly, the cards merged into a tornado and enveloped Li Shanton. The crowd exclaimed. They could no longer tell whether this was a magic trick or magic, and they couldn't figure out what was pulling the cards to spin. The dazzling poker cards finally completely surrounded Li Shanton. The crowd could no longer see Li Shanton. They could only see the poker cards spinning rapidly. Li Shanton laughed in the countless poker tornadoes. 3, 2, 1. As soon as he finished speaking, the poker tornadoes fell to the ground, and Li Shanton in the middle of it was gone. The crowd cheered. They had never seen such a magic since they were young. And everyone was so close to the magician that they saw him disappear out of thin air. A girl screamed, "So handsome, so handsome. I'm in love with this magician. This is magic." Li Shanton has been performing magic in Los Angeles for a while. Because of his magical magic and outstanding appearance, he has attracted many girls to become his fans. Before the evening, many people would come to the square to wait for him to perform magic. And Li Shanton has never disappointed the audience. His magic is never the same, and the audience can never tell how he does it. Ren Xiaosu frowned. Even he couldn't tell how Li Shanton did it. At this time, Li Shanton's laughter sounded behind him. "How about this magic?" Ren Xiaosu turned around and looked at Li Shanton and asked, "How did you do it?" "It's just a trick," Li Shanton smiled modestly. But Ren Xiaosu knew that this was definitely not as simple as a trick. He just didn't understand why Li Shanton appeared here, and he was obviously a legendary great extraordinary person, but he liked to perform magic on the streets so much. Li Shanton glanced at Zhou Yingxia beside Ren Xiaosu, but he didn't ask anything. Instead, he seemed to remember something, By the way, come with me, I have something to give you. As he said, Li Shenton walked towards a small park next to the square, where many residents of the fortress took a walk. Li Shenton walked in front, not worried that Ren Xiaosu would just leave. When he arrived at a place where no one was, he took out a piece of black cloth from somewhere and threw it on the lawn. This action made Ren Xiaosu stunned. What was Li Shenton going to do? Li Shenton looked at Ren Xiaosu and said with a smile, "I'll show you a magic trick." As he said that, he blew on the black cloth, and then lifted it up, and saw a pile of gold bars on the lawn. "This is for you," Li Shenton said with a happy smile. "Do you like it?" Zhou Yingxu's eyes were wide open, but Ren Xiaosu, who is always greedy for money, didn't move, just frowned and asked, "What do you mean?" "This was robbed from the Zhuang family, but it wasn't robbed by me, it was robbed by a supernatural person named Wang Konggang," Li Shenton said with a smile. "Wang Konggang? Who did he rob?" Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt as if there was something very important behind this. It should be a brigade commander of the Zhuang family. Wang Konggang was driving his small train and knocked over the car that the brigade commander was transferring assets. Then he took half of the gold and I took half of the gold. "I know you like this, so I kept it for you," Li Shenton explained with a smile. "I didn't touch it at all. Our daily expenses are all earned by performances." At this time, Ren Xiaosu suddenly figured out something. At the beginning, their sharp knife company was chased by an armored brigade in the heartland of the Zhuang family. Everyone couldn't figure out why this armored brigade didn't go to the front battlefield, but ran back to the heartland of the Zhuang family to chase his steam train. Now I know, it turns out that I have also taken the blame for Wang Konggang. They didn't chase me at all, but saw the steam train and thought that Wang Konggang was there, so they chased Wang Konggang to get their property back. Ren Xiaosu was speechless immediately. You can't use the skills of others randomly after copying them. But Ren Xiaosu still didn't take the gold bar. To be honest, he didn't want to deal with Li Shen that much, because it was very dangerous for a normal person to deal with a madman. You couldn't imagine the meaning of the other person doing this. He changed the subject and said, "Where is the girl next to you?" Ren Xiaosu was asking about Si Liren. Weren't these two inseparable in the past? While talking, Ren Xiaosu even looked up at the sky to see if Si Liren was flying somewhere again. Li Shenton explained, "Oh, she has been obsessed with reading romance novels recently and doesn't go out every day." "Why did you come to Luocheng?" Ren Xiaosu asked again. Li Shenton smiled and said, "Because this place is more suitable for people like me who perform for money to survive. Don't you think the residents of this fortress in Luocheng are more lively than the residents of other fortresses? Other fortresses make me feel lifeless, as if they are sitting at home waiting to be exploited by the consortium." Zhou Yingxu stood behind Ren Xiaosu without saying a word. She knew that this was not the time for her to speak. Ren Xiaosu looked at Li Shenton carefully. He always felt that Li Shenton's purpose was not that simple. Could he be waiting here to find him? It didn't make sense. He came to Luocheng by chance. Ren Xiaosu suddenly asked, "What are you going to do in the future? Perform magic in Los Angeles?" No, Li Shenton said with a smile, "I'm waiting for a miracle." At this time, Li Shenton ended the chat first and said, "It's getting late. The girl is waiting for me to buy her some roasted sweet potatoes. Here are the gold. If you want it, take it. If not, I can't help you. We will definitely meet again. By the way, I suggest you go to King University. Maybe you will gain something." After saying that, Li Shenton turned around and left without any hesitation. This kind of behavior is like coming when you are excited and leaving when you are exhausted. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 587 Li Shenton's Bad Taste. Zhou Yingxu looked at Li Shenton's receding back and suddenly asked, "Master, who is he?" "Li Shenton," Ren Xiaosu said calmly. "Sounds familiar, but I can't remember who it is." Zhou Yingxu thought hard. "Devil Whisperer." Ren Xiaosu looked at the gold on the lawn next to him, and finally put all the gold into the space. When Zhou Yingxu heard about the Devil Whisperer, she was stunned. "Master, is he the Devil Whisperer? He looks pretty good, and he doesn't look like the legendary devil at all." And a man like Li Shenton is giving gold to you, master. You are too awesome. Ren Xiaosu glanced at Zhou Yingsu. He was a little numb to the frequent flattery. In the night, Li Shenton, holding the roasted sweet potatoes he had just bought, trotted all the way back to his and Si Liren's small courtyard. At this time, the little girl Si Liren was still reading a novel with relish. Li Shenton complained, I came all the way to buy sweet potatoes for you, you should at least say hello to me and thank me. In order to prevent the sweet potatoes from getting cold, I ran back. Si Liren put down the book with a smile, thank you, brother Shenton. As she said that, she took the sweet potato from Li Shenton, and then looked at Li Shenton puzzledly, brother, you seem very happy. I met Ren Xiaosu, Li Shenton smiled. Si Liren pouted, what's so happy about seeing him? I asked him to go to King University. Li Shenton looked very excited, but I didn't tell him where he was going. Then what? Si Liren was puzzled. Just think about it, he took his maid to King University without any preparation. If he happened to run into Yang Xianjin, Li Shenton's eyes flashed with a strong light, how interesting it would be. How fun. Si Liren has also been catching up on a lot of romance novels recently. When she heard what Li Shenton said, she suddenly became interested. Then Yang Xianjin and Ren Xiaosu turned against each other and started a hunt in Luocheng. Amid the roar of sniper rifles, Zhou Yingsu fell to the ground first. Li Shenton didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's not a hunt. Isn't this how the heroine's drama should be written? Si Liren muttered, when will he go to King University? It's too late today. He should go tomorrow, Li Shenton calculated. Then let's go and take a look, Si Liren blinked. Maybe they won't run into each other. After all, King University is quite large, and the chances of two people meeting will be relatively small, Li Shenton said after thinking for a while. Then just take it as a stroll, Si Liren said, I haven't been to King University yet. What if I'm recognized by college students? I'm very famous now, and many girls will ask me for autographs. Li Shenton hesitated. Si Liren's eyes widened, are you starting to have an idle burden? Ren Xiaosu couldn't fall asleep after returning to the hotel. It wasn't because of other things, but because of what Li Shenton said to him, going to King University will definitely give you something. What is this gain? Because of the lack of information, Ren Xiaosu couldn't guess it. This sentence was like a magic, so Ren Xiaosu woke up the next morning and knocked on Zhou Yingsu's door, saying that he was going to King University, and Zhou Yingsu didn't need to follow him, just go back to sleep. As a result, Zhou Yingsu packed up in 2 minutes and said that she also wanted to go and see, she hadn't been to King University yet. After breakfast, the two went straight to King University, and Lao Li and Qin Sheng appeared in the hotel again, and the two went straight to Ren Xiaosu's room. But the result this time was still nothing. Not to mention hair, not even a single hair was found. Old Li said in confusion, this guy can't be bald, is he wearing a wig now? He and Qin Sheng looked at each other. Qin Sheng said, it is also possible that he is more cautious and has hidden all his hair. Many killers do this and never leave any traces. Maybe, Old Li said helplessly, let's go find them and try again. Zhang Qingxi pushed this matter to us, and other people are also very concerned. We must find out. At this time, Ren Xiaosu and Zhou Yingsu had already walked into the gate of King University. No one stopped them. This place is not like other universities of the consortium. Those universities are all completely closed. If you want to enter, you have to check your ID. After entering, there is a guard every 3 steps and a sentry every 5 steps. Those universities might as well be called confidential research institutes. Young men and women in the university walked on the campus, each with a relaxed and free smile, and there were couples walking hand in hand. Ren Xiaosu stood on the campus and looked at these carefree college students. He suddenly sighed that such a life seemed too far away from him. While the students here were dating, playing basketball, and dancing, he was escaping from the pursuit of the experimental subjects, and he also went through life and death with a sharp knife company in the wilderness, and faced artillery fire and enemies in the 146th rampart. The two sides were like creatures living in two different worlds, but Ren Xiaosu looked back and found that he had no way back. Those chaotic and confusing things pushed him forward little by little. His life had never given him a choice. The next moment, Zhou Yingsu said, Master, look, many students are rushing in the same direction. They are so hurried. Is there something going on? Ren Xiaosu was puzzled. Is this what Li Shenton told him? He said, Let's go and take a look. But when he arrived at the crowded place, Ren Xiaosu was a little disappointed. He saw many people gathered under a stage, and it seemed that there was a debate on the stage. The topic of the debate was whether humans should use nuclear energy. Because of the incident at barrier number 74, King University, a place that gathers many thoughtful college students, will definitely pay attention to this kind of thing. The college students on the stage each had their own opinions, but Ren Xiaosu really had no interest in this kind of paper debate. Should humans have nuclear energy? Ren Xiaosu didn't know, but he knew that this thing already existed and he had experienced it personally from a distance. No matter how fierce the students' debate is now, what is coming will still come. Zhou Yingsu smiled with interest. Master, these students look like they are the same age as you, or even a little older than you, but they still look like children who haven't grown up. Zhou Yingsu didn't lower her voice when she spoke. Several students next to them looked at them. Ren Xiaosu put on his hood in annoyance. Will you die if you say less? Is this the time for you to flatter? At least keep your voice down. Oh. Chapter 588 Scumbag. The debate was going on fiercely on the stage, and Zhou Yingsu said again, Hey, that guy on the stage looks a little familiar. Ren Xiaosu followed Zhou Yingsu's gaze and saw that the man was more than familiar. It was Su Zhi whom they had saved before. Su Zhi was the president of the Students' Union of King University. He went to the black market before and didn't wait for Zhou Yingsu and came back. Now that the school has a major event, of course he will appear here, and he is also the host of this debate. I remember, Zhou Yingsu said, we saved him, and his money was transferred to my account on time. This time she lowered her voice, but it was very crowded and everyone was very close, so one or two people heard it after all. Someone looked at Zhou Yingsu, wondering what the woman was talking about. Let's go, Ren Xiaosu said. He was afraid that Zhou Yingsu would say something else. Moreover, Ren Xiaosu himself had lost interest in King University, and didn't know why Li Shanton said that. Did he want him to come here to listen to a debate and then go back to persuade the Qing family to give up nuclear weapons? When did the demon Li Shanton in the southwest become so compassionate? It's impossible. Just as they turned and left the crowd, Su Zhi on the stage suddenly saw Zhou Yingsu's back. He was too familiar with this haunting back. While debating on the stage, Su Zhi suddenly jumped off the stage, making all the debaters confused. Su Zhi tried hard to separate the crowd to find Zhou Yingsu, but she had disappeared. Someone asked, What are you looking for? Su Zhi asked hurriedly, Did you see a woman and a hooded boy just now? Everyone looked at each other, as if they had some impression. There were two people standing here just now, and they seemed to look down on us, but they left after listening for a while. What are you looking for them for? Su Zhi didn't have time to explain too much. They saved me. After saying that, Su Zhi rushed out. The other people in the field gradually became in an uproar. The whole King University knew that Su Zhi had been kidnapped before, and it was a mysterious boy with his mate who saved Su Zhi. This matter was a hot topic at the time, and it aroused the interest of many people. Now these two people actually appeared on the King campus? Someone muttered, Could it be that Su Zhi recognized the wrong person? No, said a girl who was just next to Zhou Yingsu. The woman herself said that she saved Su Zhi, and it was these two. Gradually, no one paid attention to the debate anymore. As for whether humans should have nuclear energy, it didn't matter anymore. Many people chased in the direction Su Zhi left, wanting to see what these two legendary figures looked like. Su Zhi chased all the way out of the campus, but in the end he still didn't find Ren Xiaosu and Zhou Yingsu. Su Zhi stood on the road, looking a little confused and frustrated. In the classroom on the other side, Yang Xiaojun was sitting by the window. A girl in front of her suddenly turned around and asked her, Xiaojun, I heard that there is a debate competition in Zhang Square. The topic is whether humans should use nuclear weapons. Do you want to go and listen after class? Yang Xiaojun was stunned for a moment. Although this girl is a classmate of hers, she has always been alone and is not familiar with her. Why would she suddenly invite her? Yang Xiaojun just thought for a second and then politely refused, I don't have time. The girl in the front row said, Yes, nuclear weapons seem to be very far away from us. It's useless to listen to this kind of debate. Yang Xiaojun's expression did not change. Nuclear weapons are indeed very far away from ordinary King College students, but not from her Yang Xiaojun. You know, She has participated in 2 operations to destroy the Li nuclear test base, and both were successful. Her life experience destined her to have nothing in common with these college students. After being rejected by Yang Xiaojun, the girl turned her head away. At this time, the bell rang. The girl was stunned when she heard the crisp bell. Other girls next to her whispered, "Why did you suddenly invite her to listen to the debate when you knew she would be rejected?" The girl herself was puzzled and whispered, "Yes, why would I invite her?" Li Shenton and Si Liren, one big and one small, were squatting in the bushes under the teaching building. Li Shenton was anxious. Why did the bell ring at this time? The hypnosis was awakened. "Brother Shenton, your hypnosis is a bit unreliable this time," Si Liren also said regretfully. "This time I just used the look," Li Shenton sighed. "This method of hypnosis is still a bit unstable." "I can't watch the good show?" Si Liren looked at Li Shenton eagerly. "It's okay, there will definitely be another chance in the future." In the morning, Li Shenton and Si Liren came to King University early and pretended to meet by chance to hypnotize Yang Xiaojun's classmates. Originally, the two thought that they could use this method to bring Yang Xiaojun and Ren Xiaosu together, but failed. Li Shenton suddenly laughed. It's interesting to think that two people who want to meet each other so much can't meet even though they are so close. Si Liren waved his cute little hands and said excitedly, "I've seen this kind of plot in romance novels." At this time, Yang Xiaojun was walking out of the classroom. She suddenly frowned and felt that something was wrong, but before she could figure it out, a boy stopped Yang Xiaojun at the door. This boy is a famous love veteran in King University, and Yang Xiaojun is particularly outstanding in King University, so there are many people who like her, and this is just one of them. In recent months, Yang Xiaojun has rejected more boys than she has killed. Although this metaphor doesn't seem to be very appropriate. The boy handed Yang Xiaojun a love letter. "This is the second time I have the courage to see you. Maybe the girls in your class have some misunderstandings about me. I am really not the scumbag they say. Please give me a chance." Yang Xiaojun glanced at the love letter in the other's hand and was too lazy to even touch it. She comforted the boy and said, "The girls in the class have never said anything about you. You are really not a scumbag. A scumbag must be 1.8 meters tall." The boy opposite was petrified on the spot. Several girls in the classroom were jealous. After Yang Xiaojun came, the boys next to them all focused on Yang Xiaojun. But Yang Xiaojun said that she had someone she liked, but she had never brought him to school. She must not bring him to school because she couldn't show him off. There was a sudden chaos outside the teaching building. A girl ran over from the corridor and said to others while running, "Do you know that the boy who saved Su Zhi and his maid came to our school? I heard that Su Zhi was looking for them like crazy. Is it true?" Someone was surprised. "Hurry up, let's go look for them." As they said that, the students in the teaching building ran out in a rush, mostly girls. Yang Xiaojun followed behind as if she had thought of something, but just as she went downstairs, a large group of people happened to bump into Li Shenton and Si Liren. A girl saw Li Shenton and exclaimed, "Magician! You are the magician!" Everyone looked at Li Shenton and Si Liren, and someone muttered, "Are they the two who saved Su Zhi?" Such a handsome Li Shenton, plus the cute Si Liren who looked like a maid, although it was inconsistent with the rumors, but when these two special people appeared in front of them, it was easy to think of what the girl said in the corridor just now. Li Shenton was dumbfounded. What the hell did this have to do with him? But before he could say anything, many girls recognized him and ran to him to ask for his autograph, and then he saw Yang Xiaojun looking at him coldly outside the crowd. Just a moment ago, Yang Xiaojun was moved and wanted to see if it was Ren Xiaosu, but she bumped into Li Shenton in the blink of an eye. This disappointed Yang Xiaojun and she even wanted to shoot Li Shenton. Li Shenton pushed away the girl next to him and laughed awkwardly, "Ha ha ha, I'm just passing by." Yang Xiaojun looked at Li Shenton without saying a word. Li Shenton took Si Liren's hand and said, "Let's go now. Are you so afraid of me?" Yang Xiaojun raised her eyebrows. "Haha, I'm afraid of you? What a joke." Li Shenton said hard words and turned away. "I'm afraid of your wife?" The girl next to him wanted to chase him, but Li Shenton raised his hand and scattered poker cards all over the sky. When the poker cards dissipated, he and Si Liren had disappeared. Yang Xiaojun stood there thinking, but when she wanted to ask something else, she could no longer find Li Shenton. The girls next to them all looked at Yang Xiaojun. There had been rumors in Los Angeles during this period that the new magician was very likely to be a supernatural being, and that the magic of his magic was achieved with supernatural powers. Just thinking about the scene that disappeared out of thin air just now, how could it be a magic? It seemed more like magic. But such a person actually said that he was afraid of the one in Yang Xiaojun's family. This feeling was very strange. Just one sentence made Yang Xiaojun mysterious in the eyes of the classmates around him. Some girls were confused. Who was Yang Xiaojun's boyfriend? Yang Xiaojun was still unwilling and wanted to continue walking out, but she was stunned as soon as she started. A woman with a black cap was standing not far away. Yang Xiaojun rushed over and asked in confusion, "And, why are you here?" The woman with a black cap helped Yang Xiaojun tidy up her hair, then smiled and said, "I have something to do. I'm going to the southwest with my aunt. Please give me a monthly ticket. Please give me a monthly ticket." Chapter 589. I'll use my life to find him. What are you going to do in the southwest? Yang Xiaojun asked. It has been confirmed that the Qing family really has nuclear weapons. We didn't find their nuclear test base before. Now we have to eliminate this hidden danger, said the girl with a black cap. This time, we must find some clues. You go with me. The other people in the mob don't know as much about the southwest as you do. With that, Yang Xiaojun's aunt was about to turn around and take Yang Xiaojun away, but to her surprise, Yang Xiaojun didn't go with her this time, but stood there in silence. "Why, have you forgotten our beliefs?" asked the aunt. "No, I just have more important things to do," Yang Xiaojun whispered. There were people coming and going in front of the school, and these two people seemed to be isolated from this bustling and noisy world. They didn't seem to belong to this peaceful world. The aunt looked at Yang Xiaojun. Is there anything more important than beliefs? Yang Xiaojun didn't answer this question, but asked instead, "Is there any news about Ren Xiaosu?" In fact, this was also like an answer. Yang Xiaojun looked at her aunt, who was always strong, otherwise she would not have parted ways with the Yang family. The aunt's real name was Yang Enjing. She even thought her name was too weak, so she changed it to Yang Enjing. Yang Xiaojun looked up and looked into her aunt's eyes. After a second of silence, she calmly replied, "No. I'm going to find him. When I find him, I'll go to the southwest to meet you, and," Yang Xiaojun said. Yang Enjing on the opposite side smiled and said, "You said you saw him pierced through the abdomen by a spear. You should know how small the chance of survival is for someone who is pierced through the abdomen and caught in a flood. If it were you, could you survive?" "No," Yang Xiaojun shook her head, "but he can. He's just a boy who hasn't grown up. Maybe he said something to make you happy and you'll remember it forever, but the feelings in this world have never been so firm and loyal. If he survived, he must have found a new love." "He won't," Yang Xiaojun said firmly. "He's the same as everyone else in this world, unique." Yang Enjing was silent. Yang Xiaojun said stubbornly, "I'm sorry, Auntie, I can't go to the southwest yet. I want to go find him. I used to think I could study here quietly, not paying attention to the outside world, until I forgot about him. But at a certain moment today, I felt like he was right next to me. It wasn't until this moment that I realized I couldn't forget him." "Then do you know where to find him?" Yang Enjing asked. "I don't know," Yang Xiaojun shook her head. "Then how are you going to find him?" Yang Enjing asked again. "With my whole life?" When Ren Xiaosu was about to leave with Zhou Yingsu, he was met by Lao Li and Qin Shen. As soon as they met, Lao Li reached out to touch Ren Xiaosu's hair, wanting to see if it was a wig. Ren Xiaosu looked at Lao Li speechlessly as he pulled his hair. "What are you doing?" "Oh," Lao Li said, "your hair is in good condition. How do you maintain it?" "Maintain what?" Ren Xiaosu was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. "Are you two here just for this?" Lao Li changed the subject and asked, "How long do you plan to stay in Los Angeles? As the host, we have to entertain you. Do you want us to take you around?" "No need," Ren Xiaosu said with a smile. "We plan to leave now. We still have some things to do." At this time, the words he gave to Jiangsu of Hope Media had been published in the newspaper. Ren Xiaosu wanted to return to barrier number 61 as soon as possible to wait for Wang Fuga's arrival. When Old Li heard that Ren Xiaosu was leaving, he said, "Then we'll see you off and arrange a car for you. What are your plans for the future? We have such a good relationship. If I want to talk to you, there must be a place to go." Ren Xiaosu thought about it and decided that he didn't need to hide his destination from Old Li. He also wanted to make friends with the knights. I'm going to go to the black market outside your Los Angeles first, and then go straight to barrier number 61. Yes, Old Li nodded quickly. Okay, I got it. At this time, Qin Sheng next to him suddenly said, Brother Xiaosu, I guess you've heard about our knights, right? Qin Sheng is the same age as Ren Xiaosu, so he just called him Brother Xiaosu for the sake of being more intimate. What aspect? Ren Xiaosu asked in confusion. We are looking for someone, Qin Sheng explained. The knights have been looking for him for a long time. His name is Ren Xiaosu, which is only one letter different from your name, Xiaosu. That's really a coincidence. Ren Xiaosu's heart skipped a beat. Why? You want me to help you find someone, right? What are his characteristics? If I see him, I will tell you. Lao Li looked at Ren Xiaosu's expression seriously. We don't know his other characteristics, we only know that he looks pretty. For some reason, Lao Li felt that Ren Xiaosu suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. Ren Xiaosu said, if I meet this person named Ren Xiaosu, I will definitely let you know. In fact, at a certain moment, Ren Xiaosu himself was also thinking, could the person that the Knights and King group were looking for be him? Instead of Yan Luoyuan? But Ren Xiaosu hoped that neither of them was the case, because many people now knew that this person came out of the laboratory of the Spark Company. Even if he was alive, he would be more than 200 years old. Wouldn't he be regarded as a monster by others? But this Ren Xiaosu was only one letter different from him, and Yan Luoyuan called him brother as if he had recognized him at first sight. The complexity of the matter made Ren Xiaosu confused for a while. It was too confusing, so Ren Xiaosu decided not to think about it for the time being. As they chatted, they had already reached the gate of the barrier. Lao Li said, then send him here. Take care. After both parties said goodbye, Zhou Yingxia drove the off-road vehicle given by Lao Li and others to the black market. On the way, Zhou Yingxia suddenly asked, Master, the person they are looking for is called Ren Xiaosu. Could it be you? Ren Xiaosu shook his head. No, they said that Ren Xiaosu's appearance is pretty. How could I be so handsome? Zhou Yingxia. So you suddenly breathed a sigh of relief just now because you heard that this person's appearance is pretty? Then you felt that it was definitely not you? Zhou Yingxia drove the car and felt that she couldn't breathe for a long time. However, Zhou Yingxia suddenly realized that Ren Xiaosu seemed to be worried since he parted with Lao Li and Qin Sheng, so she didn't say anything. Ren Xiaosu looked out the window, and no one knew what he was thinking. The two did not go directly to barrier number 61, but went to the black market first to wash out the rewards they had received from Anjing Temple with the help of the black market casino, and then set off again. Chapter 590 Submit to Me. It was the end of November, and the entire Barrier Alliance had entered winter. A large amount of supplies began to be transported into the barrier to prepare for the winter, and the plants on both sides of the street began to turn yellow and dry. A strange thing happened at barrier number 61. In previous years, the creepers would lose all their leaves in winter, leaving only bare vines, but this year the creepers were lush and green. As the weather became colder, it seemed to be unaffected, and it spread to a wider area, decorating the residential buildings in that area with extraordinary beauty. Many people in barrier number 61 heard about this and went to watch. Some people in the Wang's consortium who liked to flatter reported the documents to Wang Shengzi, saying that this was a good omen, indicating that Wang Shengzi managed the Wang's barrier too well, and everyone had food to eat and clothes to wear, so God would send down such a good omen. Wang Shengzi just laughed it off. The migrant workers who were building the railway and expressway on the Northwest Road were still busy. The increasingly cold weather didn't seem to have much impact on them. They had long been accustomed to it. This was far from the coldest time. However, the northern grassland was already covered with ice and snow. That was outside the Barrier Alliance and bordered barrier number 176. Barrier number 176 was also independent and did not belong to any consortium. However, their reputation was not as prominent as Fortress number 178, probably because they rarely encountered foreign enemies. The howling wind blew across the grassland. Not only were huge snowflakes falling from the sky, but even the snow on the ground was being blown up layer by layer, and then covered with new snow. The whole world was gray, and the dark clouds in the sky were like a roaring black dragon. The snow would never stop falling. On the grassland, Thousands of giant wolves were moving step by step towards the east in the snow. Every once in a while, a wolf from the wolf pack would stand on the periphery, while the wolves that had previously been fighting the wind and snow on the periphery would return to the center of the wolf pack to keep warm. The weather has been bad since the disaster, and even the thick fur of these wolves can hardly resist such cold wind. The wolves continued to move eastward, leaving long footprints on the snow, and then were covered by the wind and snow. Among the wolves, Yan Liwen sat on the back of the wolf king, wrapped in thick leather, layer by layer, making him a fat man. Only in this way could he barely keep warm. The leather was peeled off by Yan Liwen and Sister Xiaoyu after the wolves captured prey. Because humans are relatively rare in the northern grasslands and are extremely scattered, the number of other creatures has increased very quickly, and the wolves here have no worries about food. Yan Liwen began to collect the fur of the prey when he saw that winter was about to come. Because he had no needles and thread, he could only wrap it around his body hastily. There were also wolves behind him carrying rolls of dried fur, which were Yan Liwen's current assets. Yan Liwen calmly turned his head to look aside. Sister Xiaoyu was also sitting on the back of a wolf like him. Sister Xiaoyu asked, "Liwen, are you cold?" "No." Yan Liwen pulled down his fur scarf and smiled bitterly. "Sister Xiaoyu, you have wrapped me up like this, how can I be cold?" At this moment, they saw a faint yellow fire in the distance. The orange-yellow color seemed to have temperature in this gray world. It should be the nomadic people in the north, a small tribe. "Let's start with them," Yan Liwen said, and then he patted the wolf king under his seat. "Let's go over there and see if we can get some staple food. Eating meat every day is a bit irritating." As he said, the wolves actually began to run on the snow. As the thousands of wolves ran, their hair turned into waves in the wind, which looked extremely spectacular. There were fire pits burning in dozens of tents in the small tribe. There was a small black iron pot on the fire pit, cooking something, gurgling, and it sounded very textured. But the people sitting in the tent were suddenly startled. They heard other strange sounds in the sound of wind and snow outside. Then, a sharp wolf howl pierced the wind and pierced everyone's ears. The howling of wolves one after another scared the herdsmen in the tent. They often dealt with wolves in the north, but they had never seen such a huge wolf pack. Someone shouted in the tent, "Protect the horses and sheep, don't let the wolves disturb the livestock, quickly, take out the guns in our tribe." As he spoke, the head of the tribe had already taken out an old pistol from his waist. He opened the curtain of the tent and rushed out to scare away the wolves. The wolves on the northern grasslands will naturally retreat as long as you shoot a few shots and injure a few of them. But this time, he just ran out of the tent and froze in place. He saw countless giant wolves standing quietly outside the tent. The giant wolf was bigger than the prairie wolf and looked like a cow. The chief of the tribe was so scared that he stood there in shock. He knew very well that the wolf pack in front of him was different. He was afraid that no matter how many shots he fired, it would not have any effect. He had seen wolf packs, but he had never seen such a large and numerous wolf pack. This was not a force they could contend with. The chief of the tribe said to the tribesmen behind him with a trembling voice, "Take the women and children away, and the men stay to delay some time. When you leave, ride horses." At this point, the chief of the tribe was a little desperate. How could the horses in this icy and snowy land outrun the wolf pack? Just when he was ready to wait for death, the terrifying wolf pack in front of him actually split a path, and two even larger wolves were carrying a man and a woman and walking slowly. All the herdsmen in the tribe were stunned. They couldn't understand why this wolf pack was still controlled by someone. And the boy sitting on the wolf king's north face had a silver light flowing in his veins, looking like a young god. There are always legends about gods on the grassland, but in fact, the herdsmen have never really seen them. If the one in front of them is not a god, is there any other way to explain it? The herdsmen behind the tribal chief were all stunned. In this snowy weather, too many changes made them temporarily lose the ability to think rationally. The fire pit in the tent was swaying in the wind outside. A woman in the tent was shivering while holding her child tightly. The boy on the back of the wolf king and the woman beside him looked mysterious and powerful. But the tribal chief was always puzzled. Could it be that a god really came to the world? Yan Liwen sat in front of the herdsmen on the wolf king's north. He looked down at all the herdsmen from a high position. When those herdsmen no longer dared to look directly at him, Yan Liwen finally smiled and said, "The north is too cold. Submit to me. Next year I will take you to the south for the winter. There will be another update in the evening, but it will be later. Thanks to Zhale, who is white-faced, for becoming the new ally of this book, and thanks to Cao Zixi for the large reward. The two bosses are generous. Recommend He Cheng in the Big Boss's new book. Chapter 591 Miracle. Whether it was because of the threat of the wolf pack or the nomadic tribe's worship of gods, the first tribe that Yan Liwen encountered after arriving on the grassland had become his vassal. The tribal head was still the tribal head. The herdsman said that he was willing to let Yan Liwen take over the entire tribe, but Yan Liwen just smiled and refused. The tribal head was puzzled. You came here, not for. Oh, Yan Liwen explained with a smile, your tribe is too small, I want the entire grassland. As for what he wanted the entire grassland for, no one knew. At first, everyone in the tribe avoided Yan Liwen and Li Xiaoyu, for fear of offending them. Everyone was more in awe of Yan Liwen, and fear was greater than respect. But later everyone gradually discovered that, let alone the young Yan Liwen, the woman named Li Xiaoyu next to the young man was really good. When the weather was fine, she would help everyone with farm work, and even go with everyone to pick up cow dung and dry it to keep warm. She didn't dislike the dirty cow dung at all, and Sister Xiaoyu would sing nursery rhymes to the children, with a crisp and beautiful voice. In Yan Liwen's opinion, the cultural gap of the northern nomadic people is far beyond the imagination of the people in the Central Plains. There is not even the most basic electricity here. After going through countless difficulties, the tribes retained cattle, sheep and horses, and then lived by grazing on the river. The tribe that Yan Liwen found did not even have a name. It was just a tribe formed naturally by a group of herdsmen living in groups for generations. However, Yan Liwen had heard that there were still large tribes on this grassland, and it was these large tribes that barrier number 176 was guarding against. According to Hassan, the head of the tribe, they actually belonged to a large tribe, but they did not have to deal with them often on weekdays. It was just that the other party would come to collect some cattle, sheep and horses every spring. If they wanted to go to war with the Central Plains, the large tribes would send people to notify them in advance and ask them to assemble at a designated place. Some of the guns in the tribe were issued by those large tribes. They were very old and seemed to have been robbed from the people in the Central Plains in the past. Hassan glanced at Yan Liwen and said cautiously, when spring comes, if they send someone over. It's okay, Yan Liwen said with a smile, I'll take care of it. Ever since Yan Liwen became the new master of the tribe, the herdsmen in the tribe were quite worried at first. They were worried that Yan Liwen would be too cruel. After all, he was followed by wolves, and they thought he was very vicious. Moreover, with so many wolves, the cattle, sheep and horses in the tribe would not be enough to eat. What if the boy let the wolves eat all the livestock? But in the end, after Yan Liwen took over the tribe, he dispersed the wolves and let them forage freely. There was plenty of food on the grassland, so there was no need to eat the herdsmen's livestock. Some herdsmen saw Yan Liwen disperse the wolves, and they thought, would this be the time when Yan Liwen was at his weakest? Kill him at this time, so that they don't have to look at his eyes. Hassan, the head of the tribe, was more rational. If we kill him, what if the wolves come back to revenge him? And people like this are naturally very confident in driving away the wolves, which shows that they don't take us seriously at all. At this time, the others gave up and no longer wanted to secretly kill Yan Liwen. A week later, when Hassan ran to report the matter to Yan Liwen looked at Hassan with a smile and said, you are a smart man. Hassan immediately understood what Yan Liwen was talking about, and this made Hassan more humble in front of Yan Liwen in the future. Yan Liwen originally thought that it would be a long time before someone from the big tribe came, but on the third day after the heavy snow stopped, someone came on horseback with a staff in his hand. The other party came to the door of Hassan's tent and said loudly, the Khan orders you to arrive at a big tent beside the Jungle River within 10 days to participate in this southward looting. The nomadic people went south to rob not money, but daily necessities. Yan Liwen heard from Hassan that it was too cold this year. A heavy snow froze many cattle and sheep to death. If they did not go south to rob food, I am afraid that many people would not survive this winter. They did not need to rob the barriers. After all, many daily necessities of the Central Plains people were in factories and farms in the wilderness. In the early years, the leaders of the big tribes were stupid and liked to fight head-on with the 176 barriers to rob things in the barriers. As a result, the Khan was shot to death in a looting. The hot weapons of the Central Plains were definitely not something they could resist. But this new Khan was different. He had found a route last year and managed to avoid the 176 barriers and robbed all the way behind the 176 barriers. When the garrison of the 176 barriers reacted, they had already relied on the powerful mobility of the evolved horses to detour back to the grassland. It was this battle that established Khan's position, and many tribal leaders finally accepted him. However, the things they robbed that time were not too much for the entire Central Plains, so they did not attract the attention of the Central Plains. And this time, the Khan seemed to have tasted the sweetness, and he actually summoned all the tribes to fight together at the beginning of winter. The man holding the scepter looked at Hassan. Why don't you reply? Do you want to disobey the order? It doesn't matter. I will go back and bring the news to the Khan to flatten your tribe. You don't have to go to the Central Plains. Your cattle, sheep and horses can be distributed to those tribes that have suffered losses. Hassan was immediately anxious, and he quickly looked at Yan Luoyuan. The man holding the scepter frowned. Why are you looking at others? This is the new leader of our tribe, so we have to listen to him, Hassan explained. The man holding the scepter looked at Yan Luoyuan. He is just a kid. Why did your tribe nominate him as the new leader? Sister Xiaoyu next to him sighed and turned back to the tent, but Yan Luoyuan smiled and said, Go back and tell your Khan that our tribe will go to the Central Plains, but not now, but after I become the Khan. You can go back alive, but I guess you will be blinded by the eagle in the sky soon, because it is not much different from being blind with your eyes open. Everyone thought it was just a boast, but at this moment, a shadow suddenly passed by in the sky. The man holding the scepter looked up and saw an eagle falling towards him. Before he could exclaim, the eagle took away one of his eyes. Yan Luoyuan's smile gradually disappeared. Go back and tell your Khan that he only has one chance to choose life or death. Hassan next to him suddenly prostrated himself on the ground, and all the herdsmen knelt down with Hassan. In their opinion, the scene of the eagle pecking the envoy blind was more like a miracle. This is a real god. Please give me a monthly ticket. Please give me a monthly ticket. This is the first time in the first series that a monthly ticket is in the top 3. Chapter 592 Uninvited Guest Qin Shen. After many days, Ren Xiaosu has returned to Fort 61. He didn't know what was happening on the northern grassland. In that wild land, a new force was quietly rising. After returning to Fort 61, Ren Xiaosu first went back to his yard to deal with the thief killed by the potato shooter. As a result, this time it was clean and there was nothing. It seems that the refugees in the market town have also learned to be smart. Knowing that there is only one way in but no way out of this yard, they simply dare not come. This made Ren Xiaosu a little uncomfortable. There was a bunch of wildflowers in the backyard. Ren Xiaosu immediately understood that this was probably a signal from Xiaolu. They had agreed before that if the woman with a black peaked cap left, Xiaolu would remind him. Ren Xiaosu breathed a sigh of relief. The woman finally left. For some reason, when the woman sat in the tavern, Ren Xiaosu always felt a sense of oppression. After Zhou Yingsu entered the yard, she quickly washed the rag and helped to clean the dust on the furniture. Ren Xiaosu raised his eyebrows. Why did you suddenly become so diligent? Master, how long have you been away from here? It's too dirty. I will feel itchy all over if I sleep here at night. Zhou Yingsu frowned. Who said I asked you to live here? Ren Xiaosu was surprised and said, You can buy a house by yourself. Houses in the market town are not expensive. There's only one room in my yard. How can we live together? In the past, perhaps because of limited conditions, Ren Xiaosu and Zhou Yingsu lived in the same hotel room, but now Zhou Yingsu is so rich, Ren Xiaosu must not be willing to share a room with her. It will not sound good if it gets out in the future, and it will easily cause misunderstandings. Zhou Yingsu asked, How much is the house here, master? 30,000 yuan can buy a brick and stone house exactly like mine, Ren Xiaosu said. When Zhou Yingsu heard that it would cost 30,000 yuan, her miserly character broke out again. Master, I can sleep on the floor in your room. I can wash your clothes and massage your legs. Ren Xiaosu's face darkened instantly. Didn't I give you any money? After all, you are worth tens of millions. Why don't you save this little money? Buy a house for yourself. I don't know how long we will live here. Oh, Zhou Yingsu went out reluctantly. Soon Ren Xiaosu heard Zhou Yingsu's voice coming from the yard next door. What? 60,000 yuan? Are house prices rising so fast? Why don't you go and grab one? The owner of the house next door said. This is my ancestral yard. My childhood memories are here. Then tell me how much it is and you can bargain. Maybe I will agree. The yard next door was only 5 or 6 meters away from Ren Xiaosu, so Ren Xiaosu heard it clearly. In fact, the owner of the house also wanted to sell the house. The previous ghost incident had a great impact on him, but when he saw Zhou Yingxu's jeweled appearance, he thought that he could get as much as possible. Besides, Zhou Yingxu, who was dressed so brightly, must have other intentions to buy his house. Maybe his house will become very valuable in a few days? Zhou Yingxu thought for a moment and said, "You asked me to bargain, 3,000. The landlord was anxious. 3,000? Are you disgusting me? At least 30,000. Zhou Yingxu's eyes widened. Then I disgusted you 10 times? No, disgusted you 3 times at most. Ren Xiaosu shook his head when he heard this. He cleaned the room by himself, while the bargaining sound next door lasted from morning to night. In the end, the landlord's scalp was numb and he sold the yard to Zhou Yingxu for 19,000. When Zhou Yingxu and I went to the tavern to eat mutton soup steamed buns in the evening, the storyteller was telling the story of the fall of Donghu Lake. When he heard Ren Xiaosu's footsteps, his face changed drastically, as if he was facing a great enemy. The storyteller had already recognized Ren Xiaosu's identity from his footsteps. Xiaolu originally saw Ren Xiaosu coming, so he excitedly came to greet him, but when he saw Zhou Yingxu behind Ren Xiaosu, his face drooped instantly and he turned his head to the kitchen. Ren Xiaosu said to Zhou Yingxu, "The mutton soup steamed bun here is delicious, you can try it." As he said that, he greeted the shop assistants and listened to the storyteller's story about the fall of Donghu while waiting for the mutton soup steamed bun. As expected, he was still in the story this time. Or to be more precise, the protagonist of this story was actually Lao Su. After the mutton soup steamed bun was served, Zhou Yingxu looked at her own portion, which had no meat, and then looked at the full meat in Ren Xiaosu's bowl. "Master, did you bring me here to eat mutton soup steamed bun just to eat 2 portions of meat?" Ren Xiaosu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This must be the work of Xiaolu. He looked up and saw Xiaolu sitting next to the storyteller with a sullen look. Zhou Yingxu followed Ren Xiaosu's gaze and immediately realized it. She glanced at her master nonchalantly. Why is this master so lucky in love? Just after sending Li Ran away, another little girl came. After the pub closed, the little deer followed the storyteller back home in frustration. As soon as he entered the house, he began to tear up the paper cranes he had folded. The storyteller was amused when he heard the noise. Yes, tear them up. Men are no good. But the storyteller was not happy for long, and the little deer started to fold paper cranes again. The storyteller was puzzled and asked, "Didn't you just tear up a bunch of them? Why are you folding them again?" The little deer said stubbornly, "I like him, it has nothing to do with him." The storyteller's teeth began to ache. "Where did you learn this from?" Ren Xiaosu returned to the yard alone, but what surprised him was that there were broken potatoes scattered all over the ground next to the potato shooter in the backyard. This scene made Ren Xiaosu stunned. It was obvious that someone had climbed into the backyard and was beaten up by the potato shooter, but where was the person? Did he run away after being beaten up? This is probably a superhuman, Ren Xiaosu thought. Only superhumans could escape unscathed after such a severe beating. But didn't the woman with the black cap leave? Could there be other superhumans in Barrier 61? This made Ren Xiaosu alert. Someone was watching him. He encountered such a thing on the first day after returning. It must be something extraordinary. Was it Wang Fuge and his friends? Not really. Ren Xiaosu felt that even if Wang Fuge saw the newspaper, he would not rush here so quickly. Besides, Wang Fuge and his friends could not withstand this potato shooter at all, and there was no need for them to climb over the wall into the backyard. It was not until 2 days later that Ren Xiaosu met Qin Sheng, who was bruised and swollen, in the tavern. Ren Xiaosu looked at Qin Sheng carefully. "Were you the one who climbed into my backyard 2 days ago?" Qin Sheng, who was bruised and swollen, laughed awkwardly. What are you talking about? I just got here." Ren Xiaosu thought for a moment and said, "Most people will use to cover up when they are embarrassed. The more embarrassed they are, the more haha." Chapter 593 Luo Lan arrives. Ren Xiaosu looked at Qin Sheng, whose face was bruised and swollen, and felt a little amused. Regardless of whether Qin Sheng admitted it or not, He knew that the person who broke into the yard 2 days ago must be the young knight in front of him who has the same age as him. But Ren Xiaosu was puzzled and asked, "Why did you come to the number 61 rampart?" "Oh," Qin Sheng explained seriously, "there is a rule in our organization that after becoming a knight, you must stay in the market town for a year. Because we usually live in the rampart, the previous knight leader thought that in this way, the new knights might not understand the sufferings of the world, so this rule was set." Ren Xiaosu nodded, "It is indeed necessary. It would be great if everyone in the rampart had the same thoughts as you. These knights are upright but not pedantic." Ren Xiaosu thinks this is a very rare thing in the current era, because in this era, excellent people are very likely to be great good or great evil, but Ren Xiaosu does not agree with these two. Sometimes, when he thinks of great good, he even feels a pain in his heart. That kind of pain, suffocating in the heart, is like an undercurrent under the deep sea, heavy and difficult to detect. Of course, he especially disliked those who advised others to be good, but they themselves were dirty. After Qin Sheng came, it was also a fun addition to Ren Xiaosu's life. Qin Sheng did nothing else every day, just helped some refugees to fetch water in the market town, and also helped to repair the refugees' shacks. This winter was particularly cold, and many refugees' shacks were leaking, but they could not find materials to repair the shacks. Ren Xiaosu had experienced such bitterness, and it was a good thing for a rich man like Qin Sheng to experience such a life. However, unlike what Ren Xiaosu imagined, at first he thought Qin Sheng might be in a hurry, or even make things worse, but in fact Qin Sheng had strong hands-on ability and rich experience in living in the wilderness. Qin Sheng hunted moles in the wilderness for 2 days, and then used the mole skins to sew the shacks, and the mole meat was distributed to the refugees. He was very skilled in mending the shacks, anyway, much more skilled than Ren Xiaosu. Ren Xiaosu asked curiously, "Did you often do needlework before?" "No," Qin Sheng said with a smile, "I used to train with my teacher, and I would walk in the wilderness for 2 or 3 months. At that time, my teacher asked me to do everything to train my hands-on ability. My teacher said that knights are honorable and never cultivate useless people." Ren Xiaosu wondered, this might be an excuse for Lao Li to be lazy? He looked at Qin Sheng. Although he had rich life experience, he felt that he was a good boy who was easy to deceive. Qin Sheng also bought a yard next to Ren Xiaosu. He and Zhou Yingsu are now Ren Xiaosu's neighbors. However, after Ren Xiaosu exposed Qin Sheng never climbed over the backyard again. The main reason was that Qin Sheng also knew that there were strange plants in the backyard, and it was not easy to get in quietly. Every day, after helping the refugees, Qin Sheng would go to the tavern to find Ren Xiaosu. He saw that Zhou Yingsu, Ren Xiaosu, and Qin Sheng all started playing landlord in the tavern. After seeing this, Xiaolu also joined the game. The 3-player game of landlord became a 4-player game of landlord. There were 2 decks of cards and 8 bottom cards. Ren Xiaosu had been looking for a long time in the market town these 2 days, hoping to buy the newspaper of Hope Media. But the grocery store owner here was not as ambitious as Wang Fuge. He really didn't read any newspapers at all and just spent his days guarding a small shop. Ren Xiaosu thought that he would not climb over the wall to buy newspapers every day. The importance of newspapers in this era is unquestionable, especially newspapers like Hope Media that particularly respect facts, which can let Ren Xiaosu learn a lot of information. He didn't have a huge intelligence network around him like others, so he could only support himself. Ren Xiaosu went to find the storyteller in the evening. After entering the door, he went straight to the point. "Do you know where to get the newspaper of Hope Media?" The storyteller glanced at him. "Why, are you starting to pay attention to current affairs?" "Because I am alone and don't have any reliable sources of intelligence, so reading newspapers is also a good way to get a lot of useful information," Ren Xiaosu explained. The little deer next to him pouted, "You are not alone." Ren Xiaosu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he saw the storyteller with an unwelcome look on his face. He took out a few newspapers from under the bed and handed them to Ren Xiaosu. "Here." Ren Xiaosu was stunned for a moment. He saw that the newspaper was from today, but he had never seen anyone come to deliver newspapers to the storyteller. The other party was indeed not an ordinary person. The information about Anjing Temple was told to him by the other party. When the woman in the black peaked cap came, it was also the storyteller who asked the little deer to remind him. "Thank you." Ren Xiaosu sat on the chair and read the newspaper. The little deer propped up his chin and looked at him. But when Ren Xiaosu started to read, the storyteller was furious. Take the newspaper and go back to your own home to read it. What's wrong with reading it here? Go, go, go. Ren Xiaosu looked puzzled. What happened to this storyteller? Did everyone get along well before? However, Ren Xiaosu left in a hurry without saying much, because the content of the newspaper had attracted him, and he had to go back to read it carefully. Today's Hope Media newspaper said that Luolan will visit Wang's barrier soon. This move is very bold and very dangerous. Moreover, the newspaper also said that there are already many radical youth groups in Wang's barrier who want to protest against Luolan after he arrives at Wang's barrier, hoping that Qing can give up nuclear weapons on their own. Ren Xiaosu pondered, this fat Luo is really brave, knowing that Wang's is the most targeted consortium at Qing's, but he still came here. There is also Luolan's itinerary on it, passing through barriers 65, 63, 62, and 61. This itinerary was provided by Luolan himself to Hope Media. He just wanted to visit Wang's under the eyes of everyone to let everyone see if he has a clear conscience and whether he has the courage. After reading this, Ren Xiaosu thought that when Luolan came to Barrier 61, he could protect him if he encountered danger. He turned to read other news. One was that there seemed to be unusual movements in the northern grasslands. Fort 176 had discovered the outposts of nomadic peoples many times and had captured some people. According to the captives, the tribes on the northern grasslands were gathering to move south because a lot of livestock died in a heavy snow in winter and they were coming to loot some supplies. There was also a less eye-catching news that Ren Xiaosu ignored. The ivy in Fort 61 was spectacular and a wonder. When Ren Xiaosu saw this news, he just muttered that he was bored and turned the page. What era is it now? Can ivy also become news? Isn't it okay to focus on useful points? There are only 2 updates today because I have to prepare the interview materials for Dragon TV in a few days. You should see me again at Dragon TV's annual storm ceremony this year, so pay attention to it. The ode chapter will be made up after the interview. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594 Big Liar. 61 Rampart. In a dim hut, the young boy Qin Sheng was lighting a candle and writing with a fountain pen on a notebook. On December 7th, at 10 a.m., Ren Xiaosu went out to the tavern as usual and left at 19 p.m. There was no abnormality, and no useful information was intercepted. After the target Ren Xiaosu returned home, there was only the sound of flipping books in the house. Ren Xiaosu can still get newspaper resources in the market town, which is suspected to be given by the storyteller, but there is no conclusive evidence. This is Qin Sheng recording Ren Xiaosu's daily routine, and there is a monitoring device next to him. This device does not need to be bugged, just in his house. Point the sound collecting device at Ren Xiaosu's yard, which is why Qin Sheng must be a neighbor of Ren Xiaosu. The device is portable and uses batteries. When the battery is almost exhausted, the intelligence personnel of Qin Group will naturally come to replace it. Qin Sheng came here with a mission. Everyone does need to live in the market town for a year after becoming a knight, but generally in the market town outside Lucheng, and will never go so far. After all, if the Knights organization casually went to live in other people's territory for a long time, it would easily cause misunderstandings from other consortiums, but now there was no need to worry about so much. After Qin Sheng finished writing these paragraphs, he took out another notebook from the side and began to record his life. He thought about it, and then wrote a few words seriously. December 7th, playing cards. Then there was nothing else. It's not that Qin Sheng didn't want to write more, but he played cards all day and didn't do anything else. When Qin Sheng came to the number 61 market town, the life in this notebook was quite fulfilling. There were descriptions of what kind of training he had experienced, and what kind of scenery and wilderness he had experienced. For example, he wrote that he had fish for dinner, and the teacher taught him how to make traps in the mud beside the river and wait for the fish to come in by themselves. Of course, he didn't write about any challenges he had completed, which made Qin Sheng feel a little regretful, because it would be more glorious to put achievements into words. Wingsuit flying, skydiving, the days of playing these in the early years made Qin Sheng feel like his blood was boiling when he recalled them. It's a pity that now the birds are too fierce to play. The airport of King Group has long been abandoned, and the last small turboprop plane has been put into storage. Qin Sheng looked at his diary. When he came to barrier number 61, his rich life changed. Every day became playing cards. December 5th, playing cards. December 6th, playing cards. December 7th, playing cards. Qin Sheng thought that he must not degenerate again, and he must change. December 8th, playing cards. Ren Xiaosu sat in the room next to him and read the Hope Media newspaper on December 8th, mainly paying attention to Luolan's schedule. As a result, Ren Xiaosu found that Luolan basically did nothing after coming to Wang's, just like traveling. Ren Xiaosu put the newspaper on the table next to him, and then sat on the recliner in the yard and looked at the sky. He read a book in the library of barrier number 88 that said that before the disaster, it was difficult for humans to see the blue sky and the stars, but now, the stars are shining above their heads. So, in fact, it was humans who destroyed themselves in that catastrophe, not the entire world. Humans themselves are extremely insignificant compared to the entire world. The next day, he went to the tavern to play cards as usual. Life seemed to have suddenly calmed down again. However, on the way home, Ren Xiaosu was stunned. He saw an old man in front of him, who was exhausted and walking towards him. The old man was holding a white banner in his hand, and it was written on the banner, Divine Calculator. The Divine Calculator's eyes lit up the first time he saw Ren Xiaosu. He suddenly quickened his pace and walked towards Ren Xiaosu. Young man, I see that you have amazing bones. You will have great fortune in the future. Ren Xiaosu raised his eyebrows. This guy said last time that he had a blood disaster. No, he would bring blood disaster to others. This time he directly said that he had a great fortune? Exclamation mark. But the fortune teller stroked his beard and smiled. Young man, I calculated that your destiny is in the northwest. Don't stay here any longer. Go back to the northwest. The fortune teller stroked his beard and smiled mysteriously, looking very celestial and unfathomable. It would be great if he could wash his face and clothes. Ren Xiaosu said unhappily, why is my destiny in the northwest? Because I calculated that there are many people waiting for you there. The fortune teller said calmly. Ren Xiaosu complained, I know you are from Fortress 178, Zhang Xiaoman told me that he just wants me to go back to Fortress 178. I haven't finished my work yet, so I won't go. Ho ha ho ha, how embarrassing. The fortune teller almost threw the banner in his hand to the ground. Zhang Xiaoman, you big mouth. Along the way, the fortune teller first hurried to barrier number 74 because he heard that it was about to collapse, but before he arrived, barrier number 74 had already collapsed. So the fortune teller found the refugee team again, but when he found the refugee team, Ren Xiaosu had already left the main group with Qin Sheng and the others. The fortune teller had to ask many people before he found the target suspected to be Ren Xiaosu. As expected of an old intelligence worker, he found some clues and chased all the way to barrier number 61. You should know that the fortune teller didn't have a cart to ride. He ran here on his own 2 legs. He was so thin. The dry food was finished and the satellite phone had run out of power. Where could he charge it in the wilderness? Now for Fortress 178, he was considered a missing person. But he was so miserable, and he still wanted to trick Ren Xiaosu back to the northwest as soon as possible. But he had just started to trick, and he was exposed by Ren Xiaosu. The fortune teller hated it in his heart. When he returned to the northwest, he would have run more than 1,000 miles in vain if he didn't beat Zhang Xiaoman to call him daddy. Ren Xiaosu continued to walk towards his residence, and the fortune teller followed him and muttered, the Central Plains is about to fall into chaos. Look, you are here, how dangerous they are. Ren Xiaosu looked at the big liar strangely. Is this a serious persuasion? You are wandering around in the Central Plains. No matter where you go, everyone thinks you are a dangerous person, right? The big liar chased Ren Xiaosu and muttered, but it's different when you return to Fortress 178. Fortress 178 is your home. Everyone hopes that you will be more powerful. Who will be afraid of you? As Ren Xiaosu was talking, he arrived home. He wanted to lock the big liar outside the door directly, but the big liar blocked the door with half of his body. Ren Xiaosu had no choice but to let him in. It was indeed like what the big liar said. He had a good relationship with Fortress 178, such as Zhang Xiaoman, Jiao Xiachen, Fu Rao, and Lin Pangan. They were all like family. So even if he didn't want to listen to the big liar's chatter, he didn't want to embarrass him too much. Chapter 595 Young Marshal. Next door, Qin Sheng also finished the card game and returned home. On the way, he saw from a distance that someone seemed to be following Ren Xiaosu, and even chased him to Ren Xiaosu's house. This made Qin Sheng suddenly excited. This might be an important clue. Qin Sheng hurried home to set up the monitoring equipment, but he was stunned after just listening to 2 sentences. At this time, the big liar sat on the chair in Ren Xiaosu's house and continued to mutter, "Now everyone obeys you. As long as you go back to Fortress 178, you will be the young marshal." What is a young marshal? Do you know its meaning? You are in the Central Plains, and the people here can't tolerate you, but as long as you go back, in a few years, the vast territory of the Northwest will be under your control. Qin Sheng was shocked when he heard this. He, Lao Li, and even the entire Knights organization believed that Ren Xiaosu might be an extraordinary person, but he seemed to be a lone ranger, and there was no power structure behind him. But now he realized that their guess was wrong at all. Ren Xiaosu's identity was beyond their imagination. What is Fortress 178? Even in the Central Plains, it is well known. And now that Fort 178 has unified the Northwest, it can be said that it has become the top force in the entire Barrier Alliance. The number of barriers it controls is second only to Wang, Zhou, and Kong. Even the barriers controlled by Spark Company are not as many as Fort 178. But people have never evaluated Fort 178 by the number of barriers. It can only be said that Fort 178 is now more powerful. After Zhang Jinglin returned to Fort 178, he made a lot of big moves, unifying the Northwest and opening up trade routes. In the early years, a knight senior had met Zhang Jinglin once and highly praised Zhang Jinglin. Now Qin Sheng suddenly discovered that Ren Xiaosu was actually the young commander of Fort 178? Exclamation mark. What the hell, why didn't the outside world hear any news? Could it be that the two of them joined forces to perform a double act for him to hear? That's Fort 178. For example, aspiring young people like Qin Sheng still admire the tough guys in Fort 178, and he decided to listen patiently. Ren Xiaosu poured himself a glass of water in the room and was silent for a long time. The big liar looked at him expectantly. As a result, Ren Xiaosu suddenly burped, "Sorry, I ate too much at night." The big liar didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What was going on? Then Ren Xiaosu muttered to himself, "I won a lot of money from Qin Sheng today. That guy looks smart, but his card skills are not that good." The big liar suddenly roared, "Are you listening to me carefully? Don't change the subject by talking to yourself like this." Qin Sheng on the other side had a black face and swore to himself that he must win back the money he lost today tomorrow. Ren Xiaosu said to the big liar, "What you said also makes me excited. I am not a person who can turn a blind eye to such a great temptation, but are you really sure that I am suitable? I am just a poor boy from a refugee family." "The commander is also a refugee," the big liar said in an extremely sincere tone. "We never look at origins. It doesn't matter if you don't have military talent now. What's important is that we recognize you and hope you go back." How good is Ren Xiaosu's military talent? In fact, it is indeed not as good as those mature generals. Military talent is not just about winning 1 or 2 battles with a company. However, everyone has read Zhang Xiaoman's battle report afterwards. What is impressive is Ren Xiaosu's ability to adapt to changes during the war and his emphasis on the lives of soldiers. Wasn't it because of this that everyone admired Zhang Jinglin at the beginning? Moreover, a company played the enemy around in the enemy's rear, and finally broke a barrier and directly annihilated most of the Zhuang family's senior leaders. Can you really say that he has no military talent? Although many things were handled very roughly, and it can even be said that he did it with his own strong strength, can you say that he did not demonstrate his military potential in these battles? So now many generals of Fortress 178 agree on one thing: as long as Ren Xiaosu comes back to receive systematic military training, even if he cannot be as good as Zhang Jinglin in the future, he may not be much worse. Moreover, Zhu Yao and Wang Fengyan have discussed this matter privately. It is definitely a good thing for Fortress 178 to have a crown prince as soon as possible. On the one hand, it can save some people's worries, and on the other hand, it can let Ren Xiaosu get familiar with military information as soon as possible, so as to avoid the situation that Fortress 178 is leaderless in case of an accident one day. They are not looking forward to Zhang Jinglin's accident, but haven't they been leaderless for more than 10 years before? Who can tell what will happen in the future? Besides, with a powerful extraordinary person like Ren Xiaosu in the fortress, everyone feels at ease, and many difficult things will become very simple. But Ren Xiaosu finally shook his head. I haven't figured out a lot of things yet. Maybe one day I will go, but I can't promise. First, I have to find my lost relatives and friends. The big liar suddenly felt much happier when he heard what Ren Xiaosu said. At least Ren Xiaosu didn't refuse, right? He smiled and said, I will find a way to contact the intelligence personnel of the 178 fortress in the Central Plains to send me a new satellite phone battery. It won't take a few days. Commander Zhang ordered us to help find your friends in the Central Plains. Maybe we have news about them now. So, we will help you find your friends, and you can go back to the northwest with me. The big liar changed the concept here. Ren Xiaosu didn't say that he would go back with him after finding the person, but Ren Xiaosu was too lazy to refute it, otherwise he would have to waste half a day. Go and do what you need to do. Ren Xiaosu kicked the big liar out of the house. Qin Sheng listened for a long time, and the more he listened, the more surprised he was. He suddenly thought of a question. Even if Ren Xiaosu was really the heir of King, which one was more powerful, King or the 178 fortress? Although King's reputation is not worse than Fortress 178, King's reputation is more in business, so ambitious people usually prefer Fortress 178, right? If it were anyone else, they would probably be happy to death if they knew they were the heir of King. So according to Lao Li and the others' assumptions, Ren Xiaosu would not be an exception, but they had to be cautious and cautious again, and confirm Ren Xiaosu's identity before they could tell the story. But they only thought about being cautious, but they didn't think about whether Ren Xiaosu was willing to inherit King and the knights. This was very embarrassing. Of course, Ren Xiaosu might not be that person. What to do? Qin Sheng felt that he had to pass this news to his teacher as soon as possible, and everyone had to re-evaluate their attitude towards Ren Xiaosu. Chapter 596 Luo Lan arrives. Qin Sheng was just daydreaming when someone suddenly knocked on the door. He walked over to open the door and saw the big liar standing at the door. What's the matter? Qin Sheng asked politely. I think the feng shui here is not good. If you live here for a long time, the negative energy may enter your body. You are still young and strong and may not feel it, but you will suffer from many diseases and disasters over time, the big liar said, but don't worry, I have a way to resolve it. Sell this house to me and I will help you resolve the hostility here. What a psycho. Qin Sheng closed the door. He wondered if this person was from the 178 fortress. How could he not blush when he was talking nonsense? The big liar turned around and left with an embarrassed look on his face, and knocked on Zhou Yingxu's door again. It turned out that he wanted to live here directly and wait for Ren Xiaosu. There are more than 20 brick and stone houses with courtyards in the market town, but Ren Xiaosu has only 2 neighbors, one is Qin Sheng and the other is Zhou Yingxu. Seeing that he failed to fool Qin Sheng, the big liar turned to fool Zhou Yingxu. Ren Xiaosu felt funny when he heard the knock on the door next door. Could Zhou Yingxu sell the house to the big liar? How could it be possible? As a result, Zhou Yingxu and the big liar made a deal at a price of 60,000 yuan, and the house changed hands overnight. Zhou Yingxu bought another yard a little further away from Ren Xiaosu, and the big liar became Ren Xiaosu's new neighbor. Ren Xiaosu was stunned when he heard the news. This woman actually turned around and sold him for a difference of tens of thousands of yuan. Zhou Yingxu counted the money happily and said to Ren Xiaosu, Master, this is the money earned from real estate investment, I won't share it with you. Ren Xiaosu. What the hell is going on? Zhou Yingxu didn't notice Ren Xiaosu's expression, and continued to talk to herself, Master, I think the house in number 61 Market Town has a lot of room for appreciation. You see, I have made tens of thousands in the past half month. No, I have to buy a few more yards. Maybe I can make more money in the future. With that, Zhou Yingxu went out in a hurry and bought 6 yards at once, even at a price of more than 30,000 yuan. Then she lay in the newly bought house and fantasized about the future. She now has capital. In the future, she can completely switch to a real estate businessman. With her vision for choosing real estate, she can become the richest person in the Barrier Alliance in a minute and surpass Wang's. With such a beautiful dream, Zhou Yingxu fell asleep. In her dream, She stood on the rampart wall and said to Ren Xiaosu proudly, "Master, this is the rampart I bought for you." At this time, the storyteller sighed in his room. "Nanan, since Ren Xiaosu came to the number 61 market town, you see, the woman from Anjing Temple has come, the knights have followed, and now even the people from the 178th fortress have followed. It is said that he has a very good relationship with the Qing family. I thought he was walking into the center of the vortex, but I found out that I was wrong. He himself is the vortex." The storyteller said this to tell Xiaolu that it is best not to touch such a person. There is really no result, and it is easy to get into trouble. But he didn't hear Xiaolu's reply after he finished talking for a long time. The storyteller asked curiously, "Nanan?" Xiaolu came back to his senses at this time. "Ah, Grandpa, you called me? Grandpa, tell me, what kind of girl would a man like Ren Xiaosu like?" Storyteller. At this time, the convoy of Luolan, Zhou Qi and others was driving on the way to barrier number 61. Zhou Qi said helplessly on the side, "If you want to die, go by yourself. Why do you drag me along all day? You know that Wang's is a dangerous place, but you still have to come here. This can prove that I am not guilty at all," Luolan said with a smile. "This Wang's is a dangerous place. Does he really dare to do anything to me? What right does he have to touch me? It should be okay to put you under house arrest secretly," Zhou Qi said. "Oh, that's not right. You also specially found reporters from Hope Media to go with you. They can't put you under house arrest unless they put you under house arrest together with reporters from Hope Media. Otherwise, Hope Media will report the truth. Hope Media wants to know more clearly what happened, and I need the outside world to know my whereabouts every day. Everyone gets what they need," Luolan said with a smile. At this time, the reporter of Hope Media was sitting in the car behind the convoy. As long as Hope Media was still following the report, Wang Shi would not touch him. After all, Wang Shi, what legitimate reason do you have to put Luolan under house arrest? This is also the reason why Luolan and the Qing Shi officially do not admit to having nuclear weapons. Don't worry about whether I have them or not. Anyway, I won't admit it. It's a matter for the future to admit it. Anyway, I won't admit it now," Zhou Qi muttered. "When they find evidence in the future, your reputation in the Central Plains will be stinking. You have acted in so many dramas, and many people believed it with tears and sobs. When they find out that you are deceiving everyone, I'm afraid no one in the Central Plains will like you." Luolan frowned. In fact, he also knew that there would be such a day. Sooner or later, the evidence that the Qing Shi has nuclear weapons will be found. As long as you have launched it, it is impossible to hide all the clues. At that time, Luolan will probably become the biggest liar and laughingstock in this barrier era. Finally, Luolan said firmly, "Compared with the future of Qing's company, this is nothing." His personal gains and losses, in exchange for Qing's time, Luolan felt that he had earned it. "Okay," Zhou Qi curled his lips, "I heard that there are already many radical elements at Barrier 61 who are ready to surround you and protest. Think about what to do." Just a group of students, what's there to be afraid of?" Luolan said, not taking these students seriously at all. When the convoy drove into Barrier 61, it did not encounter any obstruction. It just symbolically checked the car and let it go. This behavior is more like avoiding suspicion. Everyone knows that Wang's company has now taken the lead in targeting Qing's company. In order to show our fair attitude, we will never quibble with you over trivial matters. The more fierce the tit-for-tat among the top leaders, the less they care about trivial matters. On the way, Luolan looked at the creepers on the roadside. "Don't mention it, the creepers in this rampart are really strange, they don't wither in winter, and there are so many of them. This creeper originally grew outside the walls of several houses, but after winter, it didn't wither, and it actually spread across several streets. If you look down from the sky, you will find that the creepers are spreading along the rampart wall, as if they want to surround the entire rampart. There are not many creepers in the center of the rampart. This green color occupies about 1/10 of the rampart, which looks quite pleasing." But Luolan didn't have time to think about the creepers. He had seen someone in front trying to block the direction of the convoy. The other party had a banner in his hand, "Qing Zhen Dictator, give up nuclear weapons." Luolan's eyes narrowed immediately. Chapter 597 Missing Persons. A group of people stood on both sides of the road, and even deliberately raised the banners higher and more conspicuous. Luolan originally thought that the other party was targeting him, so he didn't take it to heart, but the other party actually targeted Qing Zhen, which made him very unhappy. Drive over, no need to stop, Luo Lan sneered. This must be someone arranged by Wangs to stir up trouble, otherwise how could the other party know when we will arrive? Today's Hope Media newspaper did not say the exact time and route of the trip. In fact, everyone knew that Wangs was behind the scenes. Zhou Qi was thinking about how to solve the current problem. If such a group of people suddenly rushed up to beat Luo Lan, it would be really unfair. Luo Lan and his men couldn't shoot in Wang's barrier. If they shot, Wang would really have a reason to detain Luo Lan. But Zhou Qi found that Luo Lan was still sitting steadily in the car, and he didn't seem to be panicked at all. The convoy moved forward slowly. They were about 2.2 kilometers away from the hotel. The hotel was located in the center of the barrier and was considered the most luxurious hotel. The Qing soldiers who were responsible for protecting Luo Lan in the car became nervous, fearing that someone in the crowd would shoot. The eyes of these Qing soldiers were as sharp as hawks. When their eyes swept through the crowd, some people actually stepped back in fear. The security personnel that Qing Zhen arranged for Luo Lan must be the elite of the army. When Qing Zhen arranged security personnel for himself, he did not transfer these ace soldiers. When the convoy passed, the people holding banners on both sides of the road actually followed and walked all the way to the hotel where Luo Lan and his friends were staying. These people are not going to follow us into the hotel, Zhou Qi frowned. But Zhou Qi guessed wrong. After they entered the hotel, this group of people sat quietly outside the hotel door, holding banners with all kinds of words. Some people scolded Qing Zhen, some asked Qing to give up nuclear weapons, and some asked Luo Lan to leave Zhangyan. Some of them did not hold banners, but watched quietly in the crowd. They instructed the movements of others. Before Luo Lan and his friends entered the room, the Qing soldiers who followed them entered to check. In addition to the eavesdropping and monitoring equipment, they even checked whether there were any layers or secret compartments in the walls. It took 15 minutes to finish the inspection. These Qing soldiers were extremely rigorous in their work. Luo Lan did not rush them, but waited quietly outside the door. There were 5 soldiers beside him to protect him. Although Luo Lan said that there was nothing to be afraid of, it would not hurt to be careful. After entering the room, Luo Lan said to a soldier behind him, "Ask the hotel restaurant to prepare dinner. It must be very luxurious. Pick the most expensive one and cook it for me. I, the Qing family, have no shortage of money." Zhou Qi was stunned for a moment. It's only noon, why are we preparing dinner? Luo Lan walked to the window, opened the curtains a little and smiled. Prepare it for them. They will definitely sit until the evening, maybe for several days. How can they starve like this? As Luo Lan expected, the group of people downstairs seemed to be determined to force Luo Lan to come out and confront them. They sat there motionless. At about 6 o'clock in the evening, Luo Lan personally pushed the dining cart out of the hotel. The dining cart covered with white cloth was full of food. Someone among the demonstrators said, "Don't think you can get rid of us by bringing us some food." Luo Lan smiled and said, "Why are you being so sentimental? Who wants to send you food? This is for me." As he spoke, a Qing soldier brought a chair for Luo Lan to sit on. Luo Lan himself ate heartily at the entrance of the hotel, his mouth full of oil. While eating, Luo Lan could even hear the sound of people sitting on the ground opposite swallowing their saliva. After all, they must have not eaten anything since morning. After all, it is not proper to eat while protesting such a serious protest. Luo Lan ate as if no one was around. He had not finished what he said to Zhou Qi before. These people scolded Qing Zhen, so they could not just starve, but also endure the anger. After eating, Luo Lan burped, "I can't finish it. There's more than half left. How about you eat it? I see you're very hungry." As he said that, Luo Lan pushed the remaining half of the leftovers on the dining cart in front of these people, and then went back to the hotel with a big laugh. Not only did he want to eat in front of these people, but he also had to leave some for them to watch. The group of demonstrators looked at Luo Lan's back, and they were so angry that their teeth itched, but they couldn't really do anything. If they did it first, they would be in the wrong. Just as the group of people were sitting quietly at the door of the hotel, someone suddenly came to report a case from the order department. The staff in the office hall of the order department were very unhappy. Because of Luo Lan's coming, most of their police force had been withdrawn. They were too busy to handle it, so why did someone come to make trouble? Moreover, Artificial intelligence has been so useful in recent years that any case will be notified to them directly by artificial intelligence. Most of the cases reported by the residents of the barrier are all Lulong incidents. However, the Wang Group requires them to have a 100% case-solving rate. As long as someone comes to report a case, it must be solved. The staff of the order department asked, "Why are you reporting this?" "Because several workers in our garment factory are missing. We couldn't get in touch with them when we called their homes, and we couldn't find them even when we went to their homes. It's like they just evaporated from the face of the earth." A middle-aged man said, "They are all workers in our factory. They can't have just disappeared like this." The staff of the order department was stunned when they heard this. It was such a confirmed missing case. Why didn't the artificial intelligence give any warning? Could they be spies? Other staff members said, "There have been such cases before. Several people suddenly disappeared, and they actually escaped from the barrier. That's not right. Why would a spy go to a garment factory when he has nothing to do?" "There are no secrets there," the staff member of the order department said helplessly. "Then you register the report information with us first. I'll go with you later to see what's going on at their home and whether there are any signs of fighting. We don't know what happened to the artificial intelligence. The case of missing cats and dogs some time ago has not been solved yet." The owner of the garment factory smiled and said, "My case is much more serious than missing cats and dogs." The staff member of the order department glanced at him and said, "Here, no one's case is more serious than anyone else. Since you have reported it, we will solve it. By the way, where are their homes?" The owner of the garment factory said quickly, "Did you see the news? It's that IV. Their home is in the IV area." Chapter 598 Eat. The staff of the order department drove the reporter out of the gate and rushed to the addresses of several missing persons. Before leaving, the staff of the order department asked, "Do those missing people live in the same area? Do they share a house?" "No, there are hundreds of workers in our garment factory, and they live everywhere. These workers also have houses in the barrier. They don't share a house, and they don't live together," explained the owner of the garment factory. "That's a bit strange," the staff member of the order department named Wang Zhongru asked in confusion. "They don't live together, but they disappeared together. Don't you think it's strange? How do they behave in the factory? Has your factory lost anything valuable recently?" Wang Zhongru thought of a possibility. Could it be that the workers in the factory stole something valuable and ran away? Such things have happened before, but the criminals were very miserable that time. They were found by artificial intelligence before they escaped from the barrier. The most valuable things in our factory are machinery and equipment, as well as raw materials, but they can't steal these things, and there is no place to sell them if they steal them. The boss denied this speculation. "Then we can only go to the scene to see it first," said Wang Zhongru. The creepers are now very large. The location mentioned by the garment factory owner is the birthplace of the Hope Media newspaper. Many residents of the fortress who have precious items such as cameras at home also go to take pictures with the creepers in winter. However, the creepers are now more than just a small area. When Wang Zhongru drove into the creeper area, he asked the garment factory owner and the co-pilot, "There are creepers everywhere. Where do they live?" The garment factory owner said, "Turn left, then turn right and you will arrive." "It is strange. Why are the creepers growing more and more?" "Sir, do you see the residential building on the left? I remember that it didn't spread here yesterday. How come the whole residential building is covered today? Don't say that. If I am not very familiar with this place, I might get lost. The lush creepers are so dense that they even cover the street signs on the residential buildings." At first, the residents thought it was beautiful, but now the creepers have affected everyone's lives. Pedestrians coming and going on the street were more or less dissatisfied with the ivy. Wang Zhongru looked at the ivy and always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what the problem was. "Here we are," said the owner of the garment factory. "It's the residential building next to it. A worker lives on the first floor." Wang Zhongru parked the car and walked into the corridor. He asked curiously, "Hey, does ivy usually grow in the corridor? Doesn't it grow in places where the sun can shine?" At this time, Wang Zhongru saw that the corridor in front of him was covered with ivy, and the original white wall had disappeared. But Wang Zhongru didn't think the ivy looked good, but felt a little cold on his back. But the people in the order department would not be scared by the ivy, so he walked in with his head held high. It was just strange that the door of this resident was open. Wang Zhongru asked, "Did you open this door?" No, said the director of the garment factory, it was open when I came yesterday. I wondered why they didn't even close the door when they left. Wang Hongru walked into the house. There were no signs of fighting as he had imagined, not even a trace of clues. But Wang Hongru was much more experienced than the director of the garment factory. Although their order department no longer investigates cases on its own and relies entirely on artificial intelligence, the people in the order department have received professional training after all. As soon as he entered the door, Wang Hongru found something wrong. There was a sweaty handprint on the door frame. It was not particularly obvious, but it was very strange. The trace left by the handprint was like someone had just opened the door with a key and was suddenly pulled out of the house by something. Then the person wanted to grab the door frame, but failed. Thinking of this, Wang Hongru looked behind him with horror, but there was nothing behind him. Wang Hongru looked at the house and didn't want to stay any longer. He said to the manager of the garment factory, "Let's go out first and ask other residents upstairs." As they went upstairs, Wang Hongru found that the creeper had already covered the entire building, both inside and outside. When he came to the second floor, Wang Hongru was surprised to find that the doors of the two households upstairs were open. He asked, "Did you go upstairs yesterday?" "No," the manager of the garment factory said. "Why would I go upstairs if I had nothing to do?" What Wang Hongru wanted to ask was whether the door on the second floor was open when you came yesterday. "Are the residents here still here?" Suddenly, Wang Hongru shouted at the top of his voice, "Is there anyone in the house?" He didn't even dare to enter the house now. The huge sense of crisis was forcing him. Wang Hongru was sweating all over his back. The next moment, Wang Hongru saw a trace of blood on the ground. It was very little and mixed with dust. Others might not recognize it as blood, but how could he not recognize it when he was doing his job? "Run!" Wang Hongru roared. After saying that, he took the director's arm and ran downstairs, but it was too late. Wang Hongru saw that the creepers on the corridor wall seemed to be alive and pulled towards the two of them. Wang Hongru no longer hesitated. Instead, he rushed into the house. As far as he could remember, there were no creepers on the first floor, right? He and the director just rushed into the house before the creepers caught them. The director was still in shock. What happened? What kind of monster is this? How can the creepers move? But Wang Hongru had no time to explain. After entering the house, he took a run and rushed to the window at his fastest speed. With a crash, Wang Hongru smashed the window with his shoulder and rushed out from the second floor. Because of the strong inertia of the run-up, the creepers outside wanted to pull him, but Wang Hongru tore off many vines instead. Wang Hongru landed on the street with a thud. The pedestrians on the street looked at him in surprise, but he shouted to the second floor regardless, "Jump out! Hurry up, or it will be too late." But the second floor was quiet. No one responded to him, as if nothing had happened. The pedestrians on the street looked at Wang Hongru with the same eyes, as if Wang Hongru was a fool, and no one knew who he was talking to. Wang Hongru's scalp suddenly went numb. He took out his ID and yelled to the pedestrians, "I am from the order department. Stay away from those creepers. Run to a place where there are no creepers." Everyone became nervous when they saw his ID from the order department. Someone asked, "Sir, what's wrong with this creeper? Is there a problem?" Wang Hongru said in a deep voice, "This creeper will eat people." He stood in the middle of the street, looking at the dense creepers around him and the residential buildings that were already covered with creepers. He didn't know how many people had been eaten by the creepers. But escaping was not absolutely safe, because Wang Hongru knew that the ivy would take the initiative to catch people. However, for some reason, as soon as he fell onto the street, the ivy immediately became motionless. Chapter 599 Shattered Dream. Wang Hongru guided the residents on the street to quickly leave the area where the creepers were, but he could only guide one street by himself, so what about the residents in other places? Moreover, this creeper was so strange that Wang Hongru asked himself that he was just an ordinary person, and he didn't dare to stay here for long. After he left the creeper area, he immediately found a landline to call the order department and said, "There is something wrong with the creeper. It will eat humans." Now you quickly call the landline of the residential buildings where the creepers are located to see if there are any living people in the residential buildings covered by creepers. If there are, tell them to leave quickly. Also, notify the Wang family's senior management to send troops. We need flamethrowers. At this time, Wang Hongru's logic was still clear. He was a very rational and decisive person, otherwise he would not have been able to escape from the residential building just now. What he said was, first, to confirm the survivors, and second, how to deal with it. This creeper was not afraid of bullets and was extremely aggressive. Wang Zhongru thought it would be more appropriate to use a flamethrower to deal with it. But Wang Zhongru was still a little hesitant. The creepers had now covered 1/5 of the area of the fortress, which meant that the number of deaths among the residents in the fortress had reached an incalculable level. Wang Zhongru guessed that the creepers had only started to eat humans in the past 1 or 2 days, otherwise a lot of people would have reported missing persons. Moreover, the creepers were probably even more powerful after eating humans. He recalled that the manager of the garment factory said that a residential building had not been covered yesterday, but today it had turned into gloomy green. The creepers did not spread so fast before. The order department did not think that Wang Zhongru was exaggerating. Wang Zhongru was also an old staff member and was very reliable in his work. So the entire order department suddenly started to move, and a large number of order department personnel rushed to Wang Zhongru's location, while the people at the headquarters began to call the landlines in the residential buildings. However, the more calls they made, the heavier their mood became, because no one answered the phone, and the calls they made were all busy. 1 or 2 calls may be coincidences, but if hundreds of calls are like this, it means something big has happened. An advance force of the garrison troops has arrived inside the barrier, carrying flamethrowers. The company commander of the advance force found Wang Zhongru to understand the situation. Wang Zhongru looked at the 2 flamethrowers in their hands and asked, "How many flamethrowers do we have in the barrier?" "Only these 2. Usually, these weapons have no place to be used, so the barrier has never been equipped with these things," the company commander explained, "and these 2 flamethrowers have not been used for a long time, and I don't know if they are good or not." After listening, Wang Zhongru looked back at the creepers. The creepers in front of them were like a green sea, boundless. How could 2 flamethrowers be enough? But the company commander said, "Let's try it first. There are brother troops in the rear who are transporting fuel. If it doesn't work, we can set fire to it bit by bit." "Okay, let's try it first," Wang Zhongru replied. A soldier carried a flamethrower on his back and walked towards the residential building. When he was 5 meters away, he opened fire directly. The long flame sprayed onto the creepers on the wall, and the creepers on the wall immediately twisted and struggled, just like the limbs of humans twisted in pain in the fire. The soldiers of the advance team were skeptical about what Wang Zhongru said, but they were shocked when they saw this scene. Normal creepers would never react like this under the burning flames. But before they could think about it, behind the soldier, a manhole cover was suddenly pushed open by countless vines, and then those vines came to the soldier in an instant, and the sharp spikes pierced into the soldier's body, dragging him into the sewer. The soldier didn't even make a cry of pain. The army behind him who wanted to rescue him was about to rush over, but there was nothing in the sewer, only the black hole of the wellhead, which was extremely terrifying. The company commander of the advance team yelled to the communicator, "Level 1 alert. Quickly notify the headquarters and request reinforcements. We need a lot of fuel." But he didn't know that it was too late to deal with the creepers at this time. When the creepers dragged the soldier into the sewer, the creepers, which seemed to be enraged by the flames, began to spread at an incredible speed. That touch of flame was like the beginning of the disaster of the entire number 61 barrier. In the past, the creepers were eating food in a secretive way, but now it has gone crazy. Before Wang Zhongru and others waited for reinforcements, they saw that the creepers were spreading rapidly towards them. In the past, the street pavement was at least clean, but now, in just 1 minute, the area covered by the creepers has even turned green. The creepers' leaves were shaking, like hands, which made Wang Zhongru's scalp numb. The advance team wanted to use another flamethrower to try to stop the creepers' speed, but Wang Zhongru looked at his side and saw that they were about to be surrounded by the creepers. He grabbed the company commander and ran. "Run, it's too late if you don't run now." "Can't run." The company commander roared. "What will happen to the people if the army runs away?" Wang Zhongru was helpless. He didn't want to wait for death here. Even if the army didn't run away, he had to run. Even if he lost his job in the order department, he couldn't die here. Wang Zhongru no longer cared about the advanced troops, but turned around and ran. He had just run a few hundred meters away when he turned back and saw the scene of the creepers engulfing the advance company. He was immediately frightened and pale. At this time, Luolan was puzzled in front of the French window. What's going on? I saw that the people from the order department had all withdrawn, and there were military vehicles driving over. What happened? We didn't do anything. It was afternoon now. The people sitting outside had been sitting for a day and a night. Luolan really didn't understand what was going on. At this time, the creepers had quickly spread along the wall of the barrier. If you look down from the sky, the barrier seems to be surrounded by a circle of strange green. Ren Xiaosu heard the crying and shouting from the outside of the rampart. He was stunned and muttered, "This time it has nothing to do with me, I didn't do anything." The gate of the rampart suddenly opened, and several soldiers fled from the gate in a panic. Someone came forward to ask, "What's wrong?" The soldiers didn't care about anything else and shouted directly, "The rampart is surrounded by creepers, and the creepers will eat people. Barrier number 61 is in danger." They escaped from the rampart at the last moment. At this moment, they were still feeling lucky to have survived the disaster. Ren Xiaosu looked at the gate. The gate that was originally open was blocked by dense green vines. Ren Xiaosu suddenly heard crying next to him. He turned his head and looked at Zhou Yingsu. "Why are you crying?" Zhou Yingsu cried and said aggrievedly, "I can't sell my house. The dream of a real estate businessman has not even started yet, and it's shattered." Ren Xiaosu's face darkened instantly. "Is now the time to think about this? Run quickly." "Wait, Luolan is still in there. Please give me a monthly ticket." Chapter 600, The Disaster of Creeping Vines. At this time, Luolan was packing up with the Qing soldiers. Luolan had quite a lot of luggage. He even brought a set of tea sets with him on this trip. His life was quite particular. It was said that the tea sets were items from before the disaster and were quite expensive. If the Barrier Alliance was really peaceful one day, this antique could be auctioned at a sky-high price. So, when Luolan ordered to pack up, the Qing soldiers gave priority to collecting the tea sets and other valuables. Although they didn't know why their boss seemed so hasty, they were just soldiers and just followed orders. But just as they were packing up these things, they heard Luolan said anxiously, "Why are you collecting that broken stuff? Are you going to die? Hurry up and take the food we brought, no matter how much it is. Don't bring water, Zhou Qi will change." Zhou Qi raised his eyebrows. Did he become a drinking water chul? A Qing soldier looked at Luolan and said, "Boss, you really like this tea set. Is tea set more important than life?" Luolan stuffed his things into a soldier's hand and said, "Follow me quickly, don't bring extra things, we have to travel light. Hurry up and call the reporter from Hope Media to come with us." As he said that, Luolan rushed out of the room and headed straight for the stairs. To be on the safe side, he didn't even take the elevator, fearing that something might happen. As a result, Luolan did the right thing this time. When they just went down from the 7th floor to the 3rd floor, the power went out in the whole hotel. "I'm not saying why you're running away," Zhou Qi was puzzled. "If the Wang's consortium really wants to kill you, you can't run away." Zhou Qi thought Luolan was trying to avoid the Wang's consortium, but he heard Luolan say, "You know shit, this person may not be the Wang's, and may not even be a human." To be honest, Luolan is also a person who has seen a lot of storms. When the experimental subjects attacked the barrier many times, he was at the scene, so when he saw the reaction of the Wang's army, he couldn't figure out what the other party was doing at first, but soon found that this was not similar to the reaction of the Li's garrison at the beginning. Luolan stood by the window before, and the more he looked, the more similar he felt. This strong sense of crisis prompted him to go downstairs quickly. No matter what happened, he had to find a safer place. First of all, it is best to escape from the barrier. If you can't escape, then choose the safest place to hide and wait for the Wang's troops to rescue. This is an extremely important geographical location for the Wang's consortium. Even if the experimental subjects break in, as long as they hide for 10 days or half a month, the Wangs will definitely take back the barrier. But that's not right. Did the experimental subjects all get blown up? What else could make Wang's troops so panicked? After going downstairs, the threat of creepers spreading had not yet reached here, but the barrier was already a bit chaotic. From time to time, vehicles could be seen driving madly, and pedestrians on the street were confused. The group of people sitting downstairs saw Luolan coming out and surrounded him. Luolan was anxious. "Get the hell out of here, I don't have time to waste with you now." As he said that, the Qing soldiers immediately formed a triangle in front of Luolan, forcibly separated the flow of people, and quickly evacuated with Luolan. Some of them wanted to drive, but a soldier found that some unlucky kid had punctured their tires. It should be the group of people sitting in silence. They couldn't hit Luolan, so they could only do this kind of small action like a child venting their anger, which was very ridiculous. Luolan took a look at the tire, turned around and ran without any nostalgia, running in the opposite direction of Wang's troops. Others might have sighed for a long time beside the car, but Luolan felt that since things had come to this point, there was no need to dwell on it. A minute of delay could easily lead to something going wrong. The protesters became even more excited when they saw Luolan was about to run. He's scared, catch up with him. Yes, beat the drowning dog. The Qing soldiers were a little angry after hearing these words, and wanted to turn back and deal with these people in the chaos, but Luolan immediately stopped them. Why are you still angry with them at this time? Run. Zhou Tao, a reporter from Hope Media, was puzzled. Luolan, why are you running away in a hurry? Are you really scared like they said? I'm too lazy to explain so much to you now. Don't talk. It's easy to get a stitch in the side when you talk while running. Luolan shut up and ran wildly without saying another word. Although Luolan didn't see any danger until now, he firmly believed in his judgment. If he didn't have this little judgment, he wouldn't have survived so many dangers before. Zhou Tao, a reporter from Hope Media, was a little puzzled. It didn't seem that Luolan was hiding from the protesters. As a result, the next moment, an alarm bell suddenly sounded in the barrier. The sound was rapid and harsh, shocking people. It was because of this incident that everyone suddenly realized that something really happened in the barrier. Zhou Tao suddenly looked at Luolan in front of him. He didn't even understand how Luolan judged it. Continuing to run forward, Luolan thought that he was so eager to escape, so he should be able to escape, right? But while running, he actually saw someone running towards him. Someone was running from the opposite side, which meant that Luolan and his team were also in danger. Luolan turned around without saying a word and began to run south, but before he ran for long, he found that someone was also running from the south. What is this? Luolan was a little desperate. Why are there people fleeing to the center of the fortress from all directions? What on earth makes the residents of the fortress so scared? He grabbed a person and asked, "Why are you running for your life?" The person who was running for his life wanted to curse, but when he saw more than a dozen fierce Qing soldiers around Luolan, he immediately took back his curse. It is said that the creepers in this fortress are catching people like crazy. The gate of the fortress is blocked by it, and it is spreading towards the center of the fortress. Some people say that the creepers have surrounded the fortress. Luolan was stunned on the spot. To be honest, there are many plant mutations since the disaster, but those plants do not actively attack humans. Luolan has never heard of such a thing. Not only him, most people are like this. Everyone has never thought that plants will attack humans. Except for those few people who have seen thorn vines and potato shooters, 99.99% of people in the world think this way, so Wang Zhongri was just a little surprised to see the creepers, but he didn't think that plants could pose any threat to him. Those who had seen the thorn vines and potato shooters were basically dead, so no one warned them in advance. It was this kind of thinking error that led to the tragedy of Barrier 61 today. Luolan shouted to the Qing soldiers around him, "This closed environment, there is no escape, we have to hide first." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.